mga isa half ng position, mga 30% na wala sa profits, 20%, pero wala eh. Yun talaga. So, buong trade ko dito, mga 70% in a few days. And then, ngayon, yung mga leaders, nag-retest na breakdown point eh. Right? You have Zoom. At the time, you had crowd. Diba? So, may mga mini bounce. Pero, parang naglo-lower high na. Tsaka, ang last kasi yung volatility eh. So, nag-try mag-bounce. Diba? Tapos nag-fade ka agad. So, sign of weakness na siya para sa akin eh. Try mag-bounce. Ito yan eh. Untog, breakdown point, fade agad. Yung mga iba nga, di na tumuloy eh. Andyan sina Zoom, at the time, andyan sina Run. Ito, malakas pa rin. Mga malakas ata ngayon, ito putik, agaw na din. Sino ba yung mga malakas ngayon? 1 week na nga din nag-chart eh. Di ko na kasi nakikita. Sino ba yung mga leader dati? AMD, sakto lang. Holding pa. So, medyo make or break na ngayon sa US. Lalo na sa tech. Sa tech names, medyo make or break na. So, pag hindi tayo nakakita ng magandang recovery, ito si Docu, yan. Sa mga malakas. So, marami nandyan na sa EMA 50 na area. So, if di sila makarecover, wala, dedo na. Ayan o. Observe na lang muna. Kasi yung mga medical-related names naman, parang sakto lang din lahat eh. NVAX, GG na. Pero di naman lahat GG sa US. Yung mga matitibay pa rin naman.
Okay, so I think, Toma, I think we're live.
Ay, live na ba tayo? Sige.
Na-fix na yung problema natin.
Game.
So, Kervin, can you double check sa Facebook and sa YouTube natin if okay naman yung live session natin for today? Alright. So,
sa
if you're...
YouTube, parang wala pa yung video. Ay, wait. Eto.
Okay. Goods na daw sa Facebook at YouTube according to Raymond. So, hello guys.
Hey. Goods na daw.
Okay na ba? Nakasettle down na tayo. Again, pasensya na po sa mga technical difficulties natin for today. So, ayun. So, Kervin, kindly allow me to share the screen.
Naka-enable na.
Okay. So, guys, welcome back. Maraming salamat for being here sa mga sumusuport sa amin. Pasensya na po sa technical difficulties natin. Meron kaming tinatry na bagong streaming service, no? So again, sa mga nandito sa Zoom, kindly mute yourselves muna para mamaya makapag-interact na tayo kapag oras na, no? So bale, for today, no? If nandito ka, ito yung agenda natin for today. So konting warm-up activity lang. Tapos of course later, meron pa tayong lesson recap from our previous lessons. Mamaya, meron din tayong new lesson from JC himself and Toma Trader. And then mamaya, shout out sa mga students. Yung favorite natin na question and answer. And of course, meron tayong pa-prizes and pa-raffle for today. So, abangan nyo ito guys. So, paano nga ba yung raffle natin for today?
Lesson from JC.
Okay, so kung gusto niyo sumali sa raffle, ito yung mga prizes that you can win, no? So very exciting because we partnered up with Team Manila and they would like to give prizes, no, for our viewers for today. So if you want to join the raffle and you are part of the Zoom, visit this link or take a picture of the QR code and it will redirect you to the raffle mechanics. So, kung nasa Zoom kayo, feel free to join. Alright. So, ito yung mga prizes na pwede nating makuha for today. So, alright. So, ito yung mga shirts natin. So, ano nga ba yung gagawin natin sa raffle mamaya? Meron tayong guess that stock na activity. So, JC and Toma, sample muna tayo kung paano natin gagamitin yung raffle session natin. So, easy lang. You have to know kung anong stock yung pinapakita sa chart na ito. So, this is a naked chart. You need to know or kailangan nyo mahulaan kung anong company to or kung anong financial chart to. So, Toma or JC, from this chart alone, may idea na ba kayo kung anong stock to?
Teka. Clue. Global
So,
ba
guys,
to or local?
Pilipinas yan.
Pilipinas to. So guys, no, anong hula nyo? Anong tingin nyo? Anong stock to?
BPI.
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 Okay, so magbibigay
Nabasa
pa
mo
lang
lang
ako
eh.
ng...
Hindi boy, memorize ko chart ng BPI, sir.
Yun.
Nabasa mo lang sa chat eh.
Hindi
So,
hindi ako nakatingin sa chat.
Ayun. So ito yung hints kung di nyo pa alam, no? Sinabi na. So nasa financial sector siya. Price niya is 64.9. Malaki yung market cap. So, yon BPI. So next chart, no? Feel free to guess, guys, kung nandiyan kayo sa Facebook, YouTube. Comment nyo yung answers nyo. Anong chart ang nakikita nyo dito? So tingnan natin kung marirecognize to ni Toma and ni JC.
Pwede sumagot?
So from this chart, alam nyo na ba kung anong chart to? JC, Toma?
Oh.
Sige, wag mo muna sabihin. Ikaw, JC.
Si Toma na, no?
Sige. So, kung hindi nyo pa alam, isang clue is Nasdaq stock siya. So, US stock siya. And ito yung price niya ngayon. So, $3,000. Mukhang alam na alam ni Toma. And then, e-commerce. So, Toma, ano yung hula mo?
May nakahula na sa chat basta yung sagot Amazon. May nakahula si Gustav.
Yun. So, ganun lang. Very simple lang yung activity natin later. So, at the end of this session, no, meron tayong raffle. So, abangan nyo yan. Amazon. Yun. So, again, kung gusto nyo sumali sa raffle natin today, this is the link. And that's the QR code if you want to join. So, feel free to join, guys. No? So, ang ganda ng mga t-shirts na ipinamimigay ni Team Manila. Alright, so let's go back, no? Konting recap lang from our previous lessons. So, quick recap na lang. So, una is nag-fundamental analysis 1 tayo. So, diniscuss ni JC yung economic factors that can move the stock market. And, of course, yung within the company, which is yung mga catalysts. Tapos, for Toma naman, of course, with Joanne, di ba, nag-present din siya. And tinuruan niya tayo ng basics of technical analysis. Alright. So, paki-clear na lang nung annotation. Kung sino man nag-annotate. Alright. So, today, ito yung lesson natin, combining catalyst and technical setups. So, I'd like to start with Toma to share your thoughts, no? Ano nga ba yung i-discuss natin today?
Sige. Okay. What's up, guys? Good evening. So, prior to moving forward with, pwede ba mag-share na screen, Renzo?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to moving, naku, naka-close yung slides ko. Teka. So, prior to moving to the main lesson today, kasi, di ba, for the past 4 weeks, nagsalita kami ni JC. So, ako, nag-discuss ako ng technical. So, literally starting from the basic, what is TA, to candlesticks, withdrawal, the trends, support resistance. Then, yung chart pattern, yung JC discussed nga, yung nga, what moves the prices, and yung mga how to understand yung mga catalysts, how to analyze companies, right? So, pinagsasalit-salita namin. Moving forward, medyo ganun din yung galawan. So, bakit nga ba, di ba, but di na lang kami nag-pure TA since yun yung common, yun yung probably 80% of the people in the community primarily focus on technical analysis, di ba? But, kami, we believe na there's always more than one way to skin the cat, right? And it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can always be a little bit of both. One is a little bit more than the other. So, okay, share ko lang yung screen ko. Okay, so before moving to, okay, kita ba yung screen ko? So,
Yes, sir.
diba, sa live session natin, I just want to give a quick recap of everything for the benefit of everyone, especially mga newbies pa lang. Diba, for the benefit nga of everyone, daanan ko lang yung a few of the things that were discussed in my previous 2 lessons and the other one with Joanne, right? So, first of all, we talked about the basics of TA, right? If you read the book Trading in the Zone, the first chapter, the introductory chapter said, dati yung TA, akala ng mga tao, pang ano lang siya, pang witchcraft, di ba? Pang magic. Kasi in the 1950s, people primarily used fundamental analysis as a form of way to comprehend how to invest in stocks, etc. And then no 1970s lang talaga umuso yung technical analysis or doon lang siya na widely accept. Right? So TA study, so basically, alam natin yan, ginagamit natin yung charts, right? What were some of the things that were discussed by Joanne at the beginning, right? We talked about trends. So I won't dwell too deep on everything. No, trends, we have the 3 types of trends. About what? Downtrends, where prices go lower, which you want to avoid. Sideways trends, where prices consolidate. Diba? Tapos, it's something na medyo bagal gumalaw, but if it breaks on either side, to the upside or to the downside, a big move can happen. And then uptrends, where prices go higher, where obviously we want to participate in. Diba? And then I talked about support and resistance, which we already know is price action or price structure. Diba? It's basically where we can see in the chart nasan yung demand, nasan yung supply. It's something na I won't discuss na in detail, something that we should never take for granted, right? As I mentioned, this is the first thing, parang ito na yung unang strategy na matututunan mo eh. Diba? And yung pagkakamali ko before is I thought, I learned this, I knew it. Sa Investa, pag naka-Investa Prime Cup, pipindutin mo lang SNR, lalabas sa chart, napakadali, hindi ko na kailangan mag-isip. Diba? So, akala ko, hindi siya kailangan, diba? Parang, wala na yan, yun yung pinaka-basic. So, and then, as I move forward and I kept learning about more advanced strategies, I realized that everything revolves around price structure and price action. And all strategies, no matter basic or advanced, umiikot pa rin dito. Diba? And then we talked about trend lines. And gusto ko lang kasi diba, support resistance, parang horizontal siya, pero pwede rin pa-diagonal. And something I just want to emphasize again, there's a few things from my previous lessons which I want to emphasize before we move on to maybe a recap of JC's lesson or to yung main topic for today. I just want to emphasize that trend lines are very subjective, diba? Kung naalala niyo yung story nito, si Borgie, diba? Na nag-plot ng trend line. Again, when we plot trend lines, you want to see, right? Yung rule of thumb, kailangan magka 2 points muna and then pagka-extend mo, yung 3rd point and onward, yan yung parang legit na area where you can buy on support. If we take a look at AC at the time, right? So, let's say, bumili ka dito, bumili si Borgie dito, nag-bounce, nag-breakdown, saan ka magbibenta? Syempre, you want to sell it as it breaks down from that trend line. So, yung mga iba kasi ginagawa, tapos, ina-adjust, di ba? Ina-adjust. So sabi, teka, ay, hindi ko pala na-plot sa week. So, ibabalik natin sa week. Okay, yun, nag-bounce. So, di muna ako magka-cut kasi nag-bounce naman eh. Di ba? Tapos, ano nangyari? Nag-breakdown. So, kapag di pa siya, nag-cut ba si Borgie dito? Hindi pa. Alam mo ginawa niya? Nag-zoom out palalo, tapos kinonect palalo. Ayan na. So, tama ba? Kinonect, sabi, okay, hawakan ko pa. And then eventually, nag-breakdown, nag-crash, right? So, kung di ka pa nagbenta dito, nung dapat dito ka nagbenta, another 20% drawdown. And then kung di ka pa nagbenta, nag-crash yung market. So, it's just to remind us na trend lines are inherently subjective, right? But obviously we should trade with an objective point of view. So how do you make trend lines subjective? Lahat naman ng trend lines ito tama eh. Di ba? Tama naman to. Tama naman to. Tama naman to. Tama naman yan. But to make it objective, right? We have to follow the initial trade plan, diba? So if we're supposed to cut here, hindi dapat i-adjust. If we were supposed to cut here, hindi dapat natin i-adjust lalo. That's just the point I wanted to make. So now, diba, what if it breaks? Diba, yung support resistance. We have breakouts, which is where a big move can happen in a short period of time, and the breakout, if happened correctly, can be a signal of a new uptrend where we obviously want to participate in. And in the contrast, breakdowns are when prices break below the support level, which can lead to a bigger move to the downside, right? Or can be a start of a new downtrend that you want to avoid. Diba? And then lastly, no first lesson, we learned about role reversal, which is basically yung tinatawag natin na pullbacks or retest, where ito lang, better if I show you guys an example, where yung dating, in the first case is yung dating resistance can turn into a new support. Diba? So here we have a very strong breakdown in the index. Then when it began pulling back, saan siya nag-bounce? Sa dating resistance. So nagka-flip. Diba? The roles, nag-flip siya. So old resistance, bagong support, nag-bounce. And ito yung example na pinakita ko, same thing. Dito, tawag dito retest. So yung retest or yung mga pullback sa ganito, when it pulls back, when it breaks out of resistance, i-retest, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's your opportunity to buy it if you missed out on the breakout. Pero it doesn't happen all the time. Kaya minsan, pagka-breakout, tutuloy na. So, swerte na, nagbigay pa si ATN neto. It will retest the old resistance area and act as a new support level. And then, after the retest, wala na. Lumipad na, 10 days, 123%. Diba? But again, retests don't always happen. And, yeah, when a stock breaks out. And kung baliktad naman, yung dating support can also turn to a new resistance. So pag bounce player ka, pwedeng ganito yung way mo na mag-take profit. So here's a wholesale, yung dating support level niya sa 1350, right? What happened? Diba? Nag-breakdown, and then nung nag-bounce, doon din nauntog sa dating resistance, sa dating support level. Right? So, yeah. Old support turn new resistance. Okay. All right, and then after that lesson, the next thing that was discussed, obviously we have yung lesson I think it was just early this week, was the chart patterns, right? Or paano nga ba magbasa ng chart patterns stock market. And that lesson was, grabe, matagal ko ginawa yun. It took me probably 2 days to make that. Yung talagang hardcore ko ginawa. Kasi mga 200 slides yun. Tapos 1 hour and 30 minutes para i-shoot. So yun yung pinakamahaba ko na shoot ever. But yun, sana nagustuhan niyo yun, na marami kayo natutunan doon. And then before we move on, right, just passing through all the chart patterns. The first thing I showed kasi was the candlestick patterns, diba? Different candlestick patterns there is. I don't even know if this is everything. But I actually, during the lesson, I just went through it very quick. Bakit? Di ko na diniscuss isa-isa kung ano ba yung hammer. Ito, pakita ko na examples. Kung ano ba yung dragonfly doji, ano ba yung bullish spinning top, ano ba yung a bearish abandoned baby, ano yung logic dyan? Bakit di ko na, noong kasi when I was starting out, I also thought it was a requirement to memorize these, diba? And kapag lumabas na yung mga bullish patterns, yun na yung buy signal ko. Well, the reason kung bakit di ko siya memorize is because number one, di naman talaga kailangan. And number two, you just have to understand what the candlesticks are showing you. You don't need to memorize the names. Diba? For example, if you look at something like the hammer, diba? The price was supported at the end of the day or sometime during the day. Kaya from a breakdown, it was able to recover. Mukha siyang hammer, showing us na malakas yung demand, right? And then, for example, the shooting star, diba? Prices go up. It went higher during the day but closed down, it shows us price rejection. So it's all about understanding the supply and demand mechanics at hand, not memorizing the pattern itself. Kasi syempre, if a candlestick pattern shows itself, hindi naman yan automatic nag-hammer tas aakyat or nag-bullish engulfing tas aakyat, di ba? So over time, parang makikita mo na lang yung patterns all over again, but hindi mo talaga siya kailangan i-memorize, right? Yung kaya dinaanan ko na siya really quick. Tapos yung finocus ko was more on obviously yung chart patterns, right? If napanood nyo yung lesson na yun. So I just want to re-emphasize a few points that I made. The first is a few tips I want to give when you're looking at patterns, right? First is pattern recognition is key. But you have to put in the reps. Bakit? Because you can't see a pattern and then just say na, kasi pinakita ko sa inyo, or nakita nyo, inverse head and shoulders. Okay, alam ko na to. Right? Hindi siya ganun eh. Just like when you're building muscle, right? And Renzo knows this more than anyone. Sorry. You have to put in the reps, diba? You can't build abs by doing 10 crunches. You have to do not just 1,000, maybe even more, and even more exercises. Aside from that, and pattern recognition is a skill, diba, that you get from putting in the reps. So you have to chart hundreds or thousands of charts, diba, and over time, mas magigets mo yung pag-identify ng mga pattern. So, kailangan yung tipong pagkita mo pa lang sa naked chart, yung wala pang drawing, kita mo na, ay putek, ayun, may kaput handle or may double top or may potential whatever magic, right? And then next is patterns take time to form, right? So, we need patience. If you're watching a stock, diba, there are some patterns that obviously form in a very short period of time, diba? Especially if you drill down to the intraday. But if we're talking about bigger picture scenarios, yeah, we have to understand that the patterns will take time, no matter what pattern that is. And for the pattern to confirm, words na complete na yung pattern, which is the break of the neckline, that's gonna take even longer. So we need patience. And then not all patterns materialize, right? So sometimes nandiyan yung pattern na gusto natin, let's say a kaput handle nag-break out, minsan bumabalik sa loob. So minsan olat siya. Right? Not everything works 100% of the time. And then not all patterns are textbook perfect. Di mo yan may measure. Hindi yan ito yung double top dapat exact yung point na uuntog siya ganun. Hindi siya ganun. Right? So there were in technical patterns, something I learned from Berio a few years back. It's really 3 types, right? You have continuation patterns, reversal patterns, and neutral patterns. And then the first thing I discussed, if you guys remember, was the reversal pattern. So we have the bullish reversal patterns, we have the double bottom, inverse head and shoulders, falling wedge. Then we have the bearish reversal patterns, meaning kapag bullish, so coming from a downtrend, nag-pattern, and then nag-potential uptrend, there's strong contra-trend move. And then if we have the bearish reversal patterns, it's a stock coming from an uptrend, forming a topish pattern, breaking down from the neckline, forming a potential downtrend in that cycle. So, ano ba yung main point? Di ko napapakita yung examples kasi sa kalahating oras ko yung diniscuss last time. So, what's the main point, diba? For the bullish reversal patterns, basically pinapakita dito is seller exhaustion. But so again, from a downtrend, it forms a sideways pattern. It forms a sideways trend, usually in a form of a pattern, whether it's your double bottoms, your Darvas box sa ilalim, your inverse head and shoulders, your falling wedges of the world. And then if it breaks the neckline, it can form a potential uptrend, a strong counter trend move. And then the main point for bearish reversal patterns is the same thing, uptrend. So we're coming from an uptrend, we're seeing some profit taking, it's forming a sideways pattern, whether it's your double tops, your triple tops, your topish pattern, your head and shoulders, right? And then if it breaks the neckline, we can see a potential downtrend or strong counter trend move. So yun lang yung main point doon. Right? And then after that, we talked about continuation patterns. When we talk about continuation patterns, kasi stocks don't go up forever. So continuation patterns, usually you can trade this very aggressively if we're in a good market, diba? So stocks kasi when they go up, obviously they don't go up forever. Right? Kailangan nila magpahinga. And kung malakas yung stock, pag nagpapahinga siya, hindi siya magbe-breakdown. Parang mag-console lang siya, mag-sideways trend sa taas. So cont patterns give us opportunities to enter specific stock when we miss the initial leg up. Right? Kasi mahirap yung napo-FOMO ka eh. So it gives us an objective way to get into stocks that are strong in a low risk entry point. Kasi mahirap yung, alam mo yung packet lang yung stock and then minsan FOMO ka, di ba? And obviously, and then there are times pag Akit, ayaw mo bumili. Tapos pag FOMO ka na, pagkabili mo, yun na yung tuktok. So comment kayo pag nakaka-relate kayo doon kasi nakailang ganun na ako. And then, babagsak na, di ba? So continuation patterns allows us, di ba, to find low risk entry points in very strong stocks. It also gives us opportunities to add to our position. So again, and then what are some things you want to see in continuation patterns? So we want to see low volume, right? During the consolidation, during the continuation pattern, you want to see declining volume, volatility contraction. Diba? And then during the breakout, you want to see above average volume. Diba? So, and then we also want to trade continuation patterns with aggressive price targets. So usually pag all-time high yan, you want to trail our stops using any moving average of your choice or kung ano man yung trail stops mo, especially for in good market environments and for trading 52-week high all-time high breakouts, diba? So ito yung mga continuation patterns, diba? Falling wedge, bullish rectangle or Darvas box or flat base kung ano gusto mong tawagin. You have the bullish pennant, the flag. So ang dami, di mo kailangan i-memorize actually lahat ng patterns. And may gusto lang akong i-address. Diba? Yung sikat kasi na pattern sa community natin is yung Darvas box. Kasi dami na nakabasa ng book na How I Made 2 Million in the Stock Market, right? So, ni Nicholas Darvas. And maraming gumagamit ng strategy ito. Parang 6 months Darvas box dapat, blah, blah, blah. So, may magic ba siya? So, actually, wala naman siyang magic. Basically, back siya. Yung core logic dyan is back siya na parang siyang support and resistance na binigyan ng pangalan. Diba? So, parang siyang support resistance, ginawang kahon. So, wala man talaga magic dyan. It still revolves around the concept of price structure and support and resistance. Hindi siya 100% hit rate. Diba? And I also discuss mga neutral chart patterns, which of course, di ba masyado i-discuss in this live session. So, just to sum everything up, right? The conclusion to everything is you don't need, right, to memorize all of the patterns that were mentioned today or that were taught a few days ago. Right? Di mo kailangan kasi di ko naman kayo ipapa-textbook na ito yung drawing ng pattern, ano pangalan, or kailangan i-memorize lahat. It's all about really understanding versus memorizing. At first, akala ko din na parang kailangan ko alamin lahat, di ba? Kasi their patterns for a reason, nakala ko, so dapat i-memorize ko. But over time, I understood na so about understanding the deeper reason kung ba't ba nagperform yung patterns. Right? And again, it's all about pattern recognition. So actually, I just want to emphasize something dito sa understanding versus memorizing. Actually, mamaya na lang. So it's all about pattern recognition, as I mentioned. Diba? You have to train your mind. Just as you have to train your muscles by putting in the reps, you also have to train your mind by charting yung mga stocks, kahit yung tipong ano lang, yung, bubuksan mo yung chart ng Jollibee, babalik ka sa 2008, tapos chart mo lahat moving forward. Yung mga ganun na galawan, yung talagang pinapractice mo yung skill, you're honing the mastery of the craft. And then my tips lang or final advice para sa reversal patterns is the pattern is not confirmed unless it breaks the neckline. So what do I mean by that? Right? Especially if you were a bigger picture player. Kasi kung swing trader ka lang or style mo lang buy and support, seller resistance or bounce player ka, siyempre bibili ka dito, di ba? Right? Saan ka magbebenta? Bebenta ka sa resistance. So textbook, right? 10%. But as you can see here, it already looks like a head and shoulders. Ito yung neckline. So dapat ba if may hawak ka neto, ibenta mo na kaagad? So not necessarily. Bakit? Kasi nga, hindi pa nabasag yung neckline. Diba? Some people say want to anticipate the potential move in the downside. But the problem with that is we don't know kung tama ka, pag binenta mo dito, tapos bumagsak, genius ka. Pero pag binenta mo dito, tapos umakyat ng 30%, wala, masusuka ka na lang, iyak ka na lang, di ba? So it's really not about anticipating. It's more about reacting. So dapat magbebenta ka pag na-break yung neckline, just as we see sa example sa Wix. And then for example, ito si Tesla, double top ba? Right? So double top ba siya? Well, actually, if bigger picture player ka, or if let's say wala kang position dito and then hinayaan mo lang, tignan mo lang, ay double top, avoid ko na to. It actually still went up 40% in 10 days after that point, right? Before topping. So that's just the point pagdating sa mga reversal patterns is the pattern isn't really confirmed until it breaks the neckline. Right? And then, so if the neckline breaks, we have potential big moves in the opposite direction. And then for continuation patterns, it's important to know the supply and demand relationship behind all the patterns. That's why hindi ko lang pinakita sa inyo yung pattern tapos sinabi na, Ito na yun. Ito na yung head and shoulders. So, para siyang yung shampoo. Basically, para siyang tao. May left shoulder, head, tas right shoulder. Tapos pag bumagsak, okay na yun. Diba? Or ito, cup and handle. Obvious naman, mukha siyang tasa. Tapos pag nag-breakout, bilhin nyo na. Pwede ko naman kasi i-discuss ng ganun eh. Kasi basically, parang ganun nga yun eh. But the important thing kasi dito is, which was why the lesson was an hour and 30 minutes, was I wanted to discuss the supply and demand relationship, the patterns. Like sa inverse head and shoulders, ano yung logic? Bakit siya bullish reversal pattern? Diba? And sinabi ko nga dun sa lesson, it's because left shoulder to the head is a lower low coming in a downtrend. And the right shoulder is the first higher low, right? And as we know, uptrends are characterized as stocks that form higher highs and higher lows. Diba? And sa right shoulder, that's the first higher low that's formed. Then we have the neckline. So if it breaks out of that neckline, we have a potential higher move. Cup with handle. What's the logic behind that? The logic behind that is the build up at resistance. So a stock that builds up at resistance at the handle at low volume actually indicates what do you call this? A lack of supply coming into the market and and then kung nagkamalakas sa demand from institutional buyers, may bigger move in the upside. Di ko discuss that. Basta kaya mahaba yung lesson yun because it's important to know the supply and demand relationship at hand. And then just again, reminders, we want to see breakouts on high volume. Bakit? Because breakouts, again, are starts of new uptrends where prices go higher. And if prices go higher, what do you need for that to continue? You need demand. And how can you measure kung malakas yung demand? It's just see high volume. Right? So as you can see here, yan, yung breakout ni Mac. So we have a big run up. Huwag tayo mga FOMO dyan. You wait for the continuation pattern, then you wait for the breakout. Oh, obviously, you can buy on support. You know, but just for sake of example, you wait for the breakout, right? And as you can see here, may mataas na volume. Then after that breakout point, it went up another 100%. And actually, on the way up, it also formed 3 more continuation patterns. You know what's another thing we want to see in the continuation patterns? You want to see low volume coming in. Diba? As you can see here, we have a breakout on high volume, but prior to that, we have low volume consolidation. Same here, we have low volume consolidation, high volume breakout, low volume consolidation, high volume breakout. Even dito, low volume conso, high volume breakout. So bakit low volume conso? Bakit gusto natin low volume consolidation or low volume sa mga continuation patterns? Because that indicates na, kasi again, stocks don't go up forever. Itong part na to, we can say that this is normal profit taking. Kasi syempre, puti, kapag nakabili ka dito, 100% na inakyat, 158%, obviously it's gonna be people and even smart money that's trying to sell portions of their positions to lock in profits. And if they're selling, prices may pull back. Pero kung malakas talaga yung stock, if it's just a natural pullback, mag-rebound yan kaagad. And if it does, that shows institutional demand. Diba? And kapag low volume kasi nangyayari, yung nga, that and prices don't pull back too deep, that shows that institutions are accumulating or supporting stock, right? And that's evident in the other continuation patterns that it formed. So that's a wrap for the recap. The basically final message ko lang dyan is everything I taught can't be mastered in kagad, diba? You have to put in the reps, and you have to. It's not about memorizing; it's about understanding it, and it's about understanding the supply and demand, di ba? Supply and demand factors at hand. So, yun lang yung recap ko, Renzo. Ibato ko ulit sa yung bola.
Okay. Alright, so maraming salamat, Toma. Maraming salamat sa quick recap natin. And of course, meron tayong additional knowledge sharing session, no? So JC, if you're here, kindly unmute yourself. Pero I think, Toma, we can move on with the knowledge sharing session sa end mo. Alright. So again, guys, ito yung topic natin for today. So ang mainly i-discuss ni JC and ni Toma today is how to combine catalysts and technical setup. So yun yung combining the two discussions and the basic lessons that we learned from the previous lessons. So again, Toma, I would like to give the floor to you once again.
Okay. Okay.
Since siguro nagkakape pa si Boss JC, no? So I think we can start with you naman, Toma.
Okay. Sige, akala ko may FA recap din. Pero okay. Sige. So, Okay. So, right, we discussed obviously FA and TA, and now the main point for this live session was to show you guys how we can mix together the two things that we taught. How can we intertwine the concept of understanding the macro environment, understanding companies, and yung mga chart patterns or technical patterns that were taught in the past 4 weeks, right? So ngayon, as said in the title, catalyst and technical patterns, diba? I will give you guys a few underlying examples of how this can work, diba? So first, before I can show you guys example, I just wanna show you guys one underlying assumptions, technical analysis that will help us understand better, diba? Mixing the two. Diba? So first is I'm not gonna read this but first, the market discounts everything. Basically, sinasabi dito is when information is made available to the public, and usually yung nangyayari is so the market discounts everything. I think it's better for me to show you guys an example na lang eh. So for example, ito, the market discounts everything, and pupasok na rin dito yung concept ng priced in. So if you look here at the lower part of the chart of Vita, we'll see that umakyat siya, diba? From piso to 3 pesos, diba? And if you're looking for a reason kung ba't siya nangyari is, at this point, diba, speculators are anticipating a corporate rehabilitation, meaning, bulok yung company nung time na yun sa ayusin. And obviously, that's good news, right? But, the moment it was actually released, diba? The moment the news was actually released, happened dito. And once na-release siya, ano nangyari? Bumagsak na. Right, so this is the concept of priced in. If you ever heard the saying, you want to buy the rumor, you want to sell the news, right? Dito siya nag-a-apply. So na-discount ng market yung good news na lumabas, right? And that's because price moves X months ahead of fundamentals. Diba? So I put X kasi I forgot if it's 6 or 12 months. Basta yung price, usually it moves ahead of any fundamental news. Diba? In most cases, because sometimes it's gonna look like this. So here's a quick chart: price versus value. Diba? So yung blue na line na straight line na pocket, yan yung funda side, diba? Na yung value ng, let's say, stock pocket talaga. But let's say this is in decades, diba? This is in decades. But the problem is on the day-to-day, or say this in years. The problem is on the day-to-day, the price kasi can fluctuate, diba? Eventually they will meet. Right? Eventually, magmi-meet yan yung kung anumang forecast yan tsaka yung presyo. But the question is, how long? Right? So, ito as you can see here, ano siya, overvalued. Tapos pag nasa baba, undervalued. Tapos eventually, nag-meet sila as it went up. So now, what's the disadvantage if you trade from a pure fundamental approach is you don't know when the forecast is actually going to hit. Diba? So, you don't know when, let's say, bibili ka dito. Kasi dito sa point na to, kasi undervalued, sabi, right? But now the problem is, you don't know how long it will take until the price can hit your projection. Eventually it did, but let's say maybe this took 5 years. It can take 7 years. We don't really know. Because again, a stock can stay undervalued, diba? For as long as it wants, if no demand comes in. Diba? So that's just something I wanted to emphasize. And now, I want to give you guys a few examples of the concept nung priced in, or yung concept na price moves X months ahead of fundamentals, right? Or yung concept ng the market discounts minsan yung mga news, right? So here's dito. So i-incorporate ko na yung chart patterns pati mga catalysts. Sorry. Pause na ako. So we have dito here. So what is the chart pattern na nakikita natin? We see a Darvas box, a flat base, whatever pattern you want to call it, diba? So wala naman magic sa pangalan. So we see a flat base, and then what else do we see in the chart? We see a shakeout. So bakit lagi ko, diba? Bakit lagi ko ini-emphasize yung mga shakeouts? Because again, if a stock makes a false move in one direction and then goes back in the base, usually a strong counter trend move on the other side is gonna happen in most cases, especially if it can recover fast. So dito nagka-breakdown pero fake move siya, nag-shake out lang, then nag-recover ka agad. So yan pa lang signal na siya na putek, baka may malaking move to. Conversely, if nangyari sa tuktok yun, tapos bumalik sa loob, edi potentially baka mag-downtrend na, right? So anyway, after that, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, na, fake outs can lead to strong moves in the opposite directions. And then after that, well, obviously this is an old example and a very famous example na stock broke out, diba? Ditto broke out. And then what do we see? Right? So volume action. We see low volume consolidation followed by a high volume breakout. And that's what we want to see, diba? Yan yung characteristics na hinahanap natin. And then, but the thing is, dito sa breakout point, right? When it broke out, ano ba nangyari nun? Actually, wala pa namang announcement nung araw na yan, eh. Diba? So again, it's showing us na price tends to move ahead of the fundamentals or the catalyst in some cases, or maybe even in most cases. And then now, saan lumabas yung news na panalo na si Dito or at the time si ISM? So sorry, natawa lang ako kasi Dito, tapos Dito yung pangalan ng stock. So dito lumabas yung news na na panalo siya. Right? Na panalo siya sa bidding, or I forgot kung ano man tawag sa term na yun, after it made 100% move. And then what happened after it was announced? Diba? The price, as we all know, in the span of a year or a little over 2 years, or yeah, mga a year and a half, went from 8 to piso. Diba? So again, this is the classic example of buy the rumor, sell the news, or classic example of the concept that the market usually discounts the news. And when everything kasi is obvious na, diba? Kasi yung smart money, dito yan bumibili. Sa konso pa lang bumibili yung mga institutional people or sa breakout. Diba? Well, lalo na kung institution ka, kung malaki yung pera mo, hindi mo kasi pwede yan bilhin lahat sa breakout. You have to, the position is accumulated over time. Right? So they may be accumulating at this point, di natin alam. Diba? And then obviously, bakit siya nabubuhusan sa news minsan? Because the smart money is selling their position. Bakit? If you have a big position kasi, and you want to sell it, let's say you had hundreds of millions of shares. Right? Let's say you had 100 million shares at 8, diba? Tapos paano mo siya ibebenta? Obviously, you have to sell it not when you want to, but when you can. When there's a lot of bids or a lot of demand. Diba? And kasi yung mga ibang retail people, and ako, I fell to this before when I didn't know the concept. Diba? Is kapag yung iba, pag lumalabas yung news, dun bumibili. Right? And the problem with that, minsan gagana, minsan hindi, but most of the time, the institutional money or the smart money is already beginning to distribute or beginning to sell their shares to the retail holders who are just buying pag lumabas na yung news. And obviously, if there's no institutional investors supporting the stock and puro retail na lang, hindi natin maaakit yung presyo niyan, di ba? So eventually, bumagsak siya. Again, buy the rumor, sell the news, or nangyayari is napaprice in na yung news, kaya siya nauntog. Let me give you another example. Here's Holcim, di ba? Holcim at this point, I didn't know ba't siya umakyat. All I knew was it formed a continuation pattern, di ba? So, alam mo yan, binili ko sa retest dito sa red candle. But anyway, for sake of example, we have a consolidation. Again, low volume, high volume breakout. But it made a huge move and then nag-announce yung news saan? Dito. Right? Ano yung news? The news was i-acquire siya ni San Miguel. Hindi siya tuloy. The benefit of hindsight, months later, hindi siya ata natuloy. But at the time, this was the reason for the entire up move. Never siya na-announce at any moment during this move up. Dito lang siya in-announce. Right? At least to my knowledge, dyan lang siya na-announce. Diba? And I bought the stock not knowing that acquisition news. Now, what happened after that? Ito weekly chart na to. It never reached 16 ever again. Bumagsak na siya eventually. Again, the smart money usually, when the news comes out, diba? Sometimes sinasabi when the news comes out, it's too late na eh. Diba? So, doon na sila nagbibenta. Again, buy the rumor, sell the news. Or, ito na po, na-discount na yung good news na lumabas. Right? And then, ito, but, it doesn't always work like that. So, baka magtanong kayo, ay, pag may good news ba, ibebenta ko na? Obviously, it doesn't always work like that. So, let me give you a US stock example. So this is AMD, Advanced Micro Devices Inc. Ito yung mga kung mga gamer kayo, kilala niyo ito si AMD, Nvidia, Intel. So, anong pattern na nakikita natin ngayon? We can see a cup with handle. Please excuse the drawings. right? We have a cup with handle. Volume characteristics are what we want to see. We have high volume. Oh, by the way, yung whole cement dito, doon na pumapasok yung mga examples, di ba? Parang may chart pattern, di ba? Sabi ko, price moves ahead of fundamentals. So, andun na yung chart pattern before the fundamental news, right? And then ito, but this is a different example naman. So, we have AMD, formed a cup with handle, a very long handle na nakakainis kasi matagal ko inaantay tapos na fake out ako dito. But anyway, I was able to buy it here a few weeks later. But anyway, so we have AMD cup with handle, low volume consolidation, highest volume on the breakout, right? And then the reason kung bakit nag-breakout si AMD was because diba, it made a 5-month high after the announcement of yung bago niyang chip o yung bago niyang product. It released a new product, diba? And at the same time, when AMD released that product, yung competitor niya, si Intel, nag-gap down, diba? Or a few days after, nag-gap down ng 20%. By what happened to AMD after that announcement? In a very short period of time, in a few weeks, in a few days, it went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In about a week, it went up mga 40%. And then in a few weeks, it went up almost 60%. And so what am I trying to show you guys here? It's now usually when a new product comes out. If you read the book How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill, malaman niyo yung strategy na can slim, diba? It's an abbreviation for ano nga ba yung C? It's an abbreviation for basta yung strategy niya parang C is current earnings, A annual earnings, N can some new, S is something. So nalimutan ko na yung ibig sabihin ng can slim, right? Oh, okay, yan basta current earnings ESP, yeah. And one of a potential catalyst for a bigger move is a new product or new management or something like that. And that's what happened to AMD. Basta may point ako after all of this, may point ako. But as you guys can see, the pattern was forming, diba, in line, or the breakout happened in line with the catalyst, diba? But Alex, so explain ko lahat mamaya. Mayroon akong conclusion slides dito. And then next naman, the last example I want to share before bato ko yung bola ay JC is the Nasdaq. So during the market crash. So during the market crash, from February to March, in 23 short days, from 9.8, the Nasdaq crashed all the way to 7,000 levels, diba? And during this time, a lot of stocks were going down as well. Or at least majority of stocks were crashing as well, except one, or except a few. But one notable is Zoom. During the same period, si Zoom, albeit in a very volatile manner, actually went up, diba, during that period, diba? And obviously, what can we say about Zoom? It's an outlier, right? And if you connect the macro view to this specific stock, what was happening? Of course, we all know what are we doing to do this webinar right now. We're using Zoom and StreamYard, but in essence, we're using Zoom. Diba? So if you take into consideration the macro environment, ano nangyayari? COVID. Diba? And kung critical ka mag-isip, diba? Zoom, ano ba to? Online platform. So baka lahat, since work from home na lahat, syempre kailangan ng online platform para mag-meeting, para mag-seminar, para mag-connect with loved ones. It looked like Zoom was that outlier. So to get into Zoom now at this point, what do we have to do? We have to, after understanding the macro view that's happening, what do we do? Obviously, we can't just buy right here, diba? There's no continuation pattern. There's no low risk entry point. So we have to wait for one. And then it gave us a falling wedge, diba? And it gave us a 44% move in a short period of time. And then eventually bumagsak, nagka-profit taking, diba? Kasi yung nga, very volatile yung market at this period. But yung nga, actually what happened lang, retest lang siya. So very short pattern lang yan. But if you waited for a bigger picture pattern to form, diba? Here we have what? Ang pattern to, an ascending triangle. And eventually we have all the volume characteristics you want to see. We have low volume consolidation followed by high volume breakout. And to cut the story short, went up 170% in a couple of months. But prior to making that big move, actually it formed another consolidation pattern, gave us another shakeout, gave us a breakout, and then gapped up 50% in one day because of good earnings before topping finally. Diba? So, ano yung implication nitong sinasabi ko si Zoom? It's, if you learn how to take a bigger look at the macro environment. Diba? Na, okay, COVID, right? What are potentially the companies that can benefit from that? Diba? So, and obviously, if the companies benefit from that, earnings will go up and the stock will go up because prices are driven by earnings. So, eventually, as we can see, with the benefit of hindsight na tama nga yung thesis kay Zoom na siya yung magiging parang savior during the pandemic. Diba? And then ang dami na nag-anticipate. And then ito pa, ibabalik ko ulit dun sa example kanina na minsan napa-price in pag masyado ng obvious. Obviously at the time, hindi pa siya masyadong obvious na magiging super move siya, diba? But at this point, somewhere here, ba't siya nag-top? Kasi obvious na masyado. People were anticipating good earnings. Good earnings nga, and then nag-gap up ng sobrang laki. Pero dun na rin siya nag-top. Dun na rin siya nabentahan. Diba? Because again, when it's too obvious to a lot of people, to the public, edi most likely than not, you might be too late. Diba? So, ano pina-point out ko dito? Diba? Nung sa Ditto and nung Ditto tsaka Holcim, nung lumabas yung news, bumagsak. Pero, nung AMD, nung lumabas yung news, umakyat. Tapos, nung Zoom, walang news, macro environment analysis lang, meaning yung COVID, tas ano magbe-benefit na company, umakyat. Pero nung lumabas yung good earnings, nag-gap up, pero bumagsak. So parang nakakalito naman. So what's my point in giving you all of these confusing examples? It's not about the catalyst. Diba? The catalyst obviously is important and you have to know it. Right? You have to know it. But what's important is, it's about how price reacts to the catalyst. Diba? You can have the best catalyst in the world. Diba? But if price doesn't conform to it, it's useless in that period of time. Eventually, baka tumuloy. But in that period of time, if my good news, if price doesn't conform to it, edi wala lang yung catalyst na yun because the market doesn't see it, doesn't appreciate what you're seeing. But at the same time, if you're given bad news and the price doesn't suddenly break down to hell, edi ano yun? Yeah, this is my point, right? It's about how price reacts to it. And what moves price? Obviously, it's supply and demand. That's why everything is always going to be, fundamentals, technicals, always going to be intertwined with supply and demand. Yun lang yung point na gusto ko ipakita. Right? Na it's important to know the catalysts. It's important to know, what's happening inside the company. It's important to track the earnings. And all of this I do. Diba? But we always have to remember, so it's important to track the macro environment, but we always have to remember na if price doesn't conform to the catalyst, diba, edi it can actually be something that can hinder you. Bakit? Because if I go back to the Ditto example a while ago, na let's say sa 8 pesos, dami bumibili niyan, right? I'm sure we know that. Ang dami bumibili sa 8 pesos. Right? And what was the logic behind buying at 8 pesos? Uy, third telco na to, magdo 2,000 pesos na to, tulad ni Globe tsaka ni Tel or ni PLDT. And the problem with not listening to price and listening to a catalyst alone is it becomes a hindering factor in your trading. Bakit? Because it will lead you, at some cases, to not cut your losses. Diba? Parang hawakan mo na lang, teka, third telco naman to eh. Right? And obviously, this coming from a trader's mindset or at least from a risk manager mindset. Diba? Na bumagsak siya from 8 to piso eh. Diba? Sure, eventually, baka mag 100 pesos siya. Diba? In the next 50 years. Di natin alam. But obviously, from 8 to piso, ano nangyari sa pera mo? Nagka-paper loss ka. Sure, paper loss. Sabi niba, paper loss na maangat din yan. But what happened while you were waiting for your stock to go back to break even? Number one, you lost the opportunity to what? Opportunity cost. You lost the opportunity to transfer that money into stronger stocks at the time. And as you all know, after that ISM play before, there were many strong stocks after. We lost capital, and we also lost probably our confidence and emotional stability, diba? To be able to trade other names as well. So that's the reason why, despite of the fundamental factors at hand, we still need to listen to price. And when price tells us na, okay, my good news nga, but prices are going down, we have to cut our losses. Right? So that's just the point I want to emphasize. But I'm sure si ibabato ko yung bola kay Renzo para ibato niya kay JC. He may have better ways he may have other examples he wants to show everyone as well. So, yun na naman yung end nung slides ko. So, stop share na muna ako, Renzo. Balik ko sa yung bola.
Sige. Alright, so maraming salamat, Toma. Napaka-concise at dami naming natutunan from your session. Sige, so Boss JC, kindly share your presentation or your screen. No? So, it's your turn na.
Okay, so thanks, Toma, for that very comprehensive explanation. May share lang ako mga charts to add up to Toma's points. So, ito. Pinag-usapan ni Toma yung mga patterns, mga technical analysis, catalysts, etc. Pero siguro, one concept that I'd like to add up. Kasi yung framework namin na hindi mo kailangan pangalanan yung mga pattern or masyadong isipin yung detalye niyan or paraningin yung sarili mo na ibang pangalan nito, nag-cross na ba to sa magic number or something, wala dun eh. Hindi mo kailangan isipin yung micro details. Ang kailangan mo tignan para magets mo talaga yung direction ng pattern or yung tunay niyang lakas is the big picture. So ito, may notes ako nilagay dito. Nababasa na ba natin? Sige, lalakihan ko lang para kita ng lahat. Ayan. Sobrang damak na yung ano nito. Nakikita niyo yung chart ko, no? So, Conso pattern on a downtrend equals higher probability for a bearish move, or a pattern on an uptrend gives a higher probability for an up move. So yung mga patterns na sinasabi ni Toma, the patterns form because nagpapahinga yung price, it's forming a range, di ba? So conso means consolidation, consolidation means nagpapahinga. So yun lang yun lahat-lahat. Yung mga pinakita ni Toma na cheat sheet, yung mga triangle, symmetrical, chuchu, mga kung ano-anong lahat-lahat yan, kahit nga yung candles eh. Lahat yan, ranges lang yan, di ba? And the way the pattern succeeds, kung mapapanood, kung babalikan mo yung mga sinabi ni Pao, the way the pattern succeeds is kahit anong direksyon yan, di ba, ganyan, magpa-pattern, tapos yung success ng pattern is on the next direction. Kung breakout ba, pataas ba, or pababa, right? So ngayon, ito yung realidad. You can never really predict a pattern. So yung mga tanong na parang, sir, how do you prevent whipsaw? Sir, paano maiwasan yung mga fake breakout? Sa totoo lang, hindi mo maiwasan yan. Though may isang strategy dyan, which is i-zoom out mo. The bigger the time frame, the more powerful the signals. Kung sobrang micro nung time frame mo, sobrang liliit ng time frame na ginagamit mo, let's say 5 minutes, 3 minutes, pag nag 3-minute chart tayo, talagang may pattern ka every 10 to 30 minutes, di ba? Pwede mong imaginein sa mata mo. Pero if nag-zoom out ka to a weekly chart or daily chart or on a 2-year horizon, konti lang yung patterns na lalabas. So mas may significance. Ngayon, ito, punta tayo dito sa point ko. Murahin ko lang yung mga drawing. Ay, putek. Ka lang. Nawala yung sinulat ko, Chong. Okay, sige. Anyway, natatandaan nyo naman yun, di ba? Yung pag downtrend, mas mababa yung probabilidad ng mga patterns mag-succeed or pababa sila. So ano ibig sabihin ko dyan? So gumamit tayo dito ng EMA 100, Exponential Moving Average 100. Yan. So ang ibig sabihin lang nito is ina-average niya yung 100-day closing prices nung isang stock. Tsaka pag tinanong mo, sir, anong difference ng simple moving average sa EMA, yung exponential, mas binibigyan niya lang na statistical weight yung recent statistics. So kung 100 sample size yan, mas may reaction siya dun sa mas recent na statistical size. Yun lang yun. Pero minor difference lang yan. So it's not, hindi mo kailangan masyado isipin yun. Ngayon, ito. So ito, Philex, ano bang presyo nito dati? Yan, 28 pesos. So dati makikita mo uptrend siya. So nung uptrend siya, may breakout dito. So when price is above EMA 100, so tignan natin okay, may breakout 1. So kahit anong pattern pa yan, whether Darvas or may channel ka, or pag zoom in natin dito, merong ito, ang dami mong pwedeng pangalanan na pattern eh. Actually kung theorist ka, pwede natin sayangin oras natin sa pagpapangalan ng mga pattern at pagdodrawing ng mga numero. Ayan. So meron tayong upper conso dyan. On the bigger picture, meron tayong higher range breakout on September 2010 to May 2011, di ba? Yun. So may mga micro, may mga big picture. So ngayon, nag-break siya. Tapos nag-break sa maliit na parang triangle, tapos nag-break dito sa bigger consolidation. So lakas no signal. Mapapansin mo, ito yung sinasabi ko na kapag yung price nagsusustain above EMA 100 or generally na susustain niya yun, higher probability yung mga next consolidation niya is pataas rin yung galaw. Depende na lang sa catalyst, no? So ito, tignan nyo to. Conso 2, kahit anong pattern mo dyan, box, upper triangle, channel, trend line, kahit ano. 'Di ba? Makikita mo naman yung range eh. Ang pinaka-simple dyan is support resistance. Lahat ng patterns ay nagfo-form ng range kung saan mapaplot mo yung support resistance. So kung di natin alam yung future, kung nandito tayo, 'di ba? Kung nandiyan lang tayo, 17 to 18. So the way na maglalagay ako ng trade plan is kukunin ko yung ilalim ng range. So sige, kung bumili ako sa 1750 or 18, baka yung exit ko kapag mali ako is below 17. So kunyari ganyan. Kasi binibili ko yung consolidation or yung flag range or Darvas box, di ba? Kahit ano pangalan mo dyan. So may 5% to 6% downside ako if in case mag-fail yung pattern. Pero since tumama siya, kung tumama, nag-breakout nga. Ayun. So ito yung sinasabi ko na kapag maganda yung trend, kahit anong konso niyan, usually nagsusustain. So bakit ganun? Psychologically, ang reason is kapag nag-intact yung catalyst, tapos napatunayan ng price action, yung sinasabi ni Toma, di ba? Pag catalyst lang, walang kwenta yan. So, i-discuss ko lalo yan later. So, pag nag-combine yung good catalyst tapos good trend, makikita mo yung sustainability in price, which will lead to consolidations that are higher probability on the upside. So, mga ganyan. Mapapansin mo, hindi na siya bumaba dun sa mga previous lows niya. Tapos, yung mga corrective patterns niya or consolidation patterns, puro trend talaga, puro pataas yung bias. Ngayon, bigyan ko kayo sample. Nung natapos na yung trend ni Felix dito, ito may mga chani pa siya diyan pero hindi na siya nag-sustain, no. So mapapansin mo, when the price is hovering below the EMA 100, mas hirap na. So kunyari dito, may mga phase na ganito na okay, may consolidation, akala mo magba-bounce yung presyo, pero hirap na siya. So Conso 1, patay. Tapos ito, Conso 2, breakdown ulit. So reverse flags, puro mga bearish patterns yung lumalabas. So ganun lang. Ito, another conso, tas breakdown ulit. So to simplify, para mo tinitingnan in cycles yung market, hindi tayo nagbabasa ng isang price, ng isang stock or structure based sa opinion natin. More of sinusundan natin yung flow ng market. 'Di ba? Ano ba yung current big picture trend nito? Kasi most likely, yung mga mini patterns na lalabas ay mas biased dun sa direction ng stock. Not unless may bagong business development. Okay, tapos ito, syempre, hindi perfecto tong mga indicators or moving average, no? Indicator lang yan. Di-discuss natin yung usage nito sa mga next lesson in detail. So, kunyari ito, may times nag-hover above yung price. Pero pansinin mo, kung mahina talaga yung catalyst ng isang stock, then lakda. Parang hindi rin siya magsusustain. Breakdown din. Tapos, ayun na, from 16 pesos, tapos tignan nyo dito, may mga breakout siya, pero walang sustainability. Wala. Ito, OLATs. So, puro lahat nung buwelo niya nga, bias is pababa. Tapos ito, okay, may mini breakout ka dyan, pero tignan nyo, hindi siya tumatagal ng 2 base or 3 base. So, ito, may break. Pero after nitong base 2, pagka-break niya dito, wala, fail na ulit. Kasi kung totoong trend na to, kung totoong reversal na to, dapat ma-hold na yung base 2, tapos magfo-form na yan base 3, di ba? Para nagla-ladder. Okay, so ganun. Ganun yung, hindi mo nga kailangan masyado mag-predict ng presyo eh. Minsan, kailangan mo lang mag-position. Kunyari, bumili ka dito sa box na to. Bili ka dyan, 9.55. Lalagay ako stops, kunyari, below 9. So, may 6% risk ako. Pag mali yung position ko, hindi naman ako sugalero, hindi ako mag-all-in. Kapag mali ako dito, kung bumagsak yan, if in case nagkamali tayo, tapos bumaba ito, then mag-out ako, poprotectionan ko sarili ko. Ganun talaga yung trading. And dito rin pumapasok na nako-connect mo yung technical patterns and yung vision mo in connecting the information that you have, di ba? Informing catalysts. Tapos, minamanage mo yung risk mo. So, parang ganun lang yung thought process. Tapos, papansinin mo dito, ito na. Ito yung sinasabi ko, ayan o, parang may break pero fail. Tapos, pwede mo drawing lahat ng patterns dito eh. Ito pa example. Kunyari, ang hilig mo sa theory, gusto mo pilitin. Yung ibang traders nakikita ko, gusto nila pilitin yung mga mata nila, yung parang nababasa nila. So, kunyari ito, right shoulder. Shoulder daw to. Tapos, sasabihin ng iba, head daw to. Yan. Tapos, kunyari, nandito tayo, nagko-consolidate na tayo dito. Kunyari, nagko-consolidate ka na dyan, diba? Hindi natin alam yung future. May mga iba, pipilitin nila yan na parang, uy, left shoulder na to. Sige, Chong, bili tayo. Parang pinapangunahan mo yung pattern dahil sinusunod mo yung sinasabi ng textbook. So, one thing to take note of, guys and gals, yung patterns, wala naman, sa totoo lang, medyo luma na yung mga shapes and yung mga specifics ng textbook technical analysis. Papansinin mo yung market ngayon, since ang dami nang may alam ng patterns, mag-a-adapt na yung mga tao. Kaya nga maraming nangyayari na may triangle, tapos mag-shake out muna, may mga head and shoulders, pero may konting variation. Mapapansin nyo, may variability and randomness dun sa paggalaw ng price. Hindi siya totally textbook perfect. And with that in mind, kung sobrang short term and textbook mo mag-isip, mahihirapan ka mag-adapt sa trading. Ito, mga real experiences ko na to. Lampas na to dun sa concepts na nakukuha lang natin sa internet o sa libro. So, ang point ko dito, you get the essence, the message of these patterns, di ba? Which is yun nga, these are ranges that will allow you to position within support or buy the breakout or breakdown or short the breakdown of the next direction. Parang ganun. Pero even without naming these patterns, dapat maintindihan mo yung essence niya. Connect it with the trend, connect it with the catalyst. So ganun ako mag-isip pag nagtitrade ako. It allows me to simplify and cut a lot of time na wasted. Na kaysa pangalanan ko to, kaysa isipin ko yung mga magical number at kung ano-ano, di ba? Yung price yung magko-confirm dyan. So ayan, kala mo inverse head and shoulder pero hindi naman nag-break dito. Hindi naman nag-break sa 9 pesos. So walang confirmation. So wala kang confirmation, malamang fake talaga, magda-down, walang lakas, magsa-sideways pababa. So ngayon, ito naman. Okay, I'll give you some samples so yan yung downtrend. I'll give you some samples on how I trade catalysts. So, hindi na ako lilipat ng chart. Nandito pa rin tayo sa Felix Mining. Papakita ko sa inyo. So, how do I combine yung sinabi ko na parang connecting the trends with the catalysts? So, isang example to. On March and April, si Felix sumabay dun sa corona crash. So, wasak siya from 3, bumaba hanggang 2 to 180. Pero pag tinignan mo yung gold chart, nung April to March, ito nag-dip rin, di ba? Pero papansin mo, nag-recover agad si gold after a while dito sa April 20s. Break niya yung 1.7 level. Tapos, after no 1.7 level, gumawa na siya ng malaking range. 1.7 to 1.750. Yan, sa orange box. Tapos, mapapansin natin, tignan natin anong ginawa ni Felix noong time na yon. So, mula dun sa panic, around here, April 20 yan, medyo nag-bottom na, nagko-conso na. So, ano nakita ko doon? Knowing na binabantayan ko yung galaw ng global markets, ang nakita ko noong time na to, if you look at gold, di ba? Uy, bakit nasa 52-week high to nung time na yon? Pandemic, pero bakit nasa 52-week high? Potentially, pwedeng mag-trend to. So even without knowing or having a strong opinion about macroeconomy or what the central banks are doing, just looking at the short-term chart, 6 months to 1-year chart, uy, bakit 52-week high to, 1-year high? And then when you zoom out, nung time na to, nung nag-zoom out ako, nasa 1.7 siya, 'di ba? So multi-year high na pala 'to. Pag binilang ko si gold, tignan natin 'to. Bilangin natin mula dito sa high na 'to. So January 2013. So vini-visit niya yung mga previous highs niya mula 6 to 9 years ago. So ngayon, napansin ko na okay, 1.7 si gold, kung mag-sustain to ba, pwede to ah. So ang agwat niya dun sa all-time high niya, yung 1.9 level is around 10% na lang. And that is very significant for an asset to hover just below the all-time high. All-time to iba yung 52-week high, yung 1-year high sa all-time high. Kasi the bigger the range, the structure, the bigger the potential move. Ganun ako mag-isip. So, ibig sabihin rin ng maximum na all-time high, ibig sabihin wala nang resistance. Perhaps may fundamental change na nangyayari sa ekonomiya, sa business, and etc. So ngayon, nakita ko yun, ineyeball ko na kagad si Bloom, ay si Felix. So nung nakita ko yung ganitong potential trend, ayun na, doon na ako nag-initiate ng trend. So dito, wala pa akong ginawa. Sa 240 below, wala pa akong ginawa. Pero nung nandito na si Felix around 260, ito, yung second base, ito may testing siya dito. Tapos nung nag-above 250 na, 260 to 280 yan, pumitik-pitik na ako ng Felix niyan. And look where Felix is now. So from 280, yung unang spot ko dito, up na halos ng 50%, nasa 4 pesos. So bakit ganun, 'di ba? Ganun kalaki yung agwat. Kasi tingnan nyo, yung gold at this point in time, totoo na mula dun sa 1.7 level niya, break niya halos yung all-time high level. So nasa 1939, no, tingnan nyo. So nandito tayo, may pattern tayo dito, 'di ba? Nagko-consolidate siya diyan. So pardon my drawing. Pero mapapansin mo, it's doing consolidation above 1880 to 1920. So far, so good. Holding. And ano yung alam natin? Kapag on a structural uptrend or on a big picture uptrend, ang probabilities at this point is, yung bias natin at this point is, trend will be intact or will continue unless we're proven wrong, unless mag-breakdown na talaga yung presyo. So yan. So yun yung in-expect ko, yun yung thesis ko. So pag tinignan mo, anong ginamit natin catalyst? So, gold movement, which is triggered of course by yung macroeconomic movement sa US and global currencies, sobrang print ng pera, so naghahanap ng value sa mga limited assets or precious metals. But even without that opinion, yung alam mo lang yung gold prices which directly affects the potential revenue of Felix is enough, 'di ba? Yun yung sinabi ko, positibo ba to o negatibo? Tapos ayun na, susunod na rin yan dun sa price structure. Tapos, kung napanood nyo yung video ko naman, ito naman, so alis na tayo sa gold. Mining rin. Kung napanood nyo yung video ko recently na yung pinakita ko yung trade ko dito sa Nickel Asia. So, pwede nyo search sa YouTube to. Ganun din yung mentality ko. So, pansinin nyo dito, may Conso 1. Yan. So, dito, chupitero pa yung utak ko sa Consolidation 1, sa Base 1. Pero nung napansin ko sa Base 2, parang nag-higher high na si nickel on the short-term structure. So yan yung charts, 'di ba? Okay, may maganda tayong semi-confirmation. But then on the nickel chart mismo, yung revenue driver ng company, yung commodity niya, papansin mo parang may major reversal rin dito at this point, no. So sumusunod lang rin. And that has guided Nickel Asia. Yun din yung basis ko do sa trade ko na to, which ayun nga, kinumbine mo lang yung ano yung business driver and then ano yung galaw sa chart. So mapapansin mo nag-conso 2. So may range ka ngayon 2 pesos to 220, may 10% range ka kung buyer on support ka or buyer on breakout ka, it doesn't matter, 'di ba? Depende na lang 'yan. Kung buyer on support nakatipid ka, susulat natin, no? Pero didiscuss ko rin sa inyo to in the next few lessons. So ganito yung mindset ko diyan. Okay, ito. So pag nakita mo na yung range, dalawang karakter lang pipiliin mo dyan. To simply put, di mo masyado kailangan mag-isip ng mga yung mga iba pinapangalanan pa yung chart na Darvas Box or lagyan natin ng special pangalan, JC pattern or kung ano man, parang basta nakakatawa eh. Pwede mo pangalanan at pwede ka magpauso ng mga kung ano-anong indicators and patterns. Pero again, guys, Pasimplihin natin yung buhay nyo. Alam niyo yung ginagawa ng mga high-level na tao, yung mga bilyonaryo, di ba? Nagsusuot sila ng damit, simple lang. Yung ginagawa nila sa buhay nila, dahil marami ka ng decisions na ginagawa, pasimplihin mo kung anong kaya mong pasimplihin. So that's an essence that I practice. So ito, dalawa lang yan. Kapag nakita ka ng conso range, mag-decide ka anong klase ka bang tao, buyer on support or buyer on breakout. Kung buyer on support ka, mas nakakatipid ka, mas potentially mura yung acquisition mo, pero baka pakainin ka ng downtrend if hindi magtuloy yung galaw ng stock. Buyer on breakout, mas mahal ng konti yung purchase mo, pero may confirmation ka, may breakout na on the upside. So ganun yung mindset. And hapyaw lang to ngayon. This is just a preview, teaser. And we're gonna use this framework in the next lessons in InvestaUniversity. So tandaan nyo yan. Okay? So ayun, ganito yung pagtingin ko na, okay, I'm aware of what's happening in the global markets, then how can I find these trends with confirmation in local stocks? So nako-connect ko catalyst plus charts. Ngayon, okay. Ito naman. So not all catalysts have to do with confirmed movement or earnings. Sometimes a stock can move wildly just because of speculation. Kasi nga, the stock market is a forward-looking mechanism, di ba? So, yung sinasabi ni Toma kanina, na priced in na yung mga situation, kapag sobrang obvious na nung isang bagay, dun na walang opportunity, mahina na yung opportunity. So, ito. Tandaan natin yan, ha? The more obvious something is, the less the opportunity. So, ano ibig sabihin nito? Pag tinignan mo yung mga kapitbahay mo or sa social network, kapag lahat nag-cheer na sa isang stock, lahat ng information nakalatag na, kahit yung barbero mo, yung driver mo, lahat, kahit yung mga tropa mo na hindi naman nag-aaral talaga ng stock, mga tropa mong sugalero, kapag lahat sila bumibili na or nag-cheer na sa stock, mag-isip-isip ka na. Ibig sabihin, baka too late na or lahat nakabili na. Even those who are usually unprepared are hyping the stock, then that can be a potential warning sign. Pero if mapapansin mo at the early stages of a trend or a price move, usually yung mga tao doubtful pa yan. Parang marami pang may hindi alam kung ano bang meron sa isang stock, and then dun usually dun may smoke, hindi pa sobrang klaro ng potential. So mas may upside pa yung isang galaw. So ano example ko dito? Itong now, bago naging third telco si dito, pinagkakamalan ng tao si Now na telco daw siya. So ito yung isa sa mga memorable trades ko yan. So kahit hindi pa final yung pagiging telco niya, just it being a candidate as one of the third telco last year. So may consolidation, then break. So kung breakout trader ka or support trader ka, meron ka na yan within 290 to 310, assuming. Tapos papansin mo, sinundan lang natin yung trend. Itong linya na to is the EMA 20. So short-term trend following metric. So papansin mo, from 4 pesos to 3 to 4, umakyat siya hanggang 17 to 18. So ganun ka wild. Alright? So ito yung sinasabi ko na sometimes a catalyst, kahit earnings yan, minsan hindi gagana yung earnings. Minsan naman speculation, pero gumagana, umaakyat yung presyo, di ba? So ito yung challenge ng pag-a-analyze or pagtingin ng logic ng paggalaw ng mga stocks, because sometimes hindi porket maganda yung fundamentals, maganda na yung galaw. Hindi porket parang speculation, hindi pa final, wala ka ng price move. Kaya kino-combine rin natin siya with trends and technical analysis para mapagtagpi natin yung information and then what the people are thinking or doing. So ito. So, papansin mo, kung may simple trend following ka lang, EMA 20, nasakyan mo si Now hanggang dito. 3 pesos hanggang nung nag-break na siya sa 13. Yan. And the problem as well, kung alam mo yung ganito, trend following tool, kahit di mo nabenta yan sa tuktok, sinundan mo lang yung discipline mo na, okay, pag below na ng EMA 20, tapos nag-price breakdown, out na ako, pwedeng ganun. Marami kasi sa stock market, pumapasok sila, wala silang strategy and framework para i-stop yung pagdurusa nila. So what if bumili ka dito may tropa ako, bumili na siya sa 16. Alam ko tong tropang to, late parate bumibili to eh. So nung sinabi niya, tol, pwede na ba bumili sa Now? Para sa utak ko, ay putya, parang warning sign na to, Delix to. So nakuha ko yung ganung signal, pero syempre kinonfirm ko sa technical signals ko, no. Pero ayun, yung mga ganung tao na parang random lang bumibili dahil lang sikat yung isang stock. Delikado yun kasi usually sila, kagaya ng kaibigan ko, wala siyang stop metric sa sarili niya eh. So ang ginawa niya, hinawakan niya na yung yung now hanggang di ko alam eh, hanggang 8 or 7 nangalahati yung pera. So ganun, kapag purely catalyst or speculation ka lang, delikado yun, lalo na kung sugal style all in tapos wala kang risk management. So ayan, yung mga next lesson natin risk management rin. So ayun, dinaanan ko lang yung thought process no on how to use catalysts and technical charts, paano natin napagtatagpi. Ngayon naman, I'll give you a few, sige, i-close out ko na yung punto ko. I'll give you some pointers on how I trade these. So ito, kita nyo ba yung slides ko? So kung hindi mo masyado naintindihan yung mga indicators, okay lang yan, no? Kasi hindi pa natin dinadaanan to sa lesson. So huwag kayong mag-alala. We're gonna go into detail paano siya gamitin, ano yung mga iba-ibang time frames, paano mo siya combine sa patterns and everything in detail. Ito parang big picture idea pa lang, yung essence pa lang. So, ngayon, ito. Tips when trading catalysts. Ito. Yung mga big picture catalysts, ito yung mga stocks na may driver, value drivers na game changer talaga. So, hindi yan basta-basta lang na parang earnings went up by 5%, 10%. Pag ganun, normal lang yun. You're gonna get normal gains. Hindi siya special. Pero, kung kagaya nung nakita mo sa gold, all-time high. Meaning, last high noon is 2011. So, that's like 9 years, 8 years na bakit tayo nasa all-time high ulit ng gold? Parang ano yun eh. 10-year cycle change yun eh, di ba? So, para sa akin yung ganun, significant. Or yung pinakita ni Toma kanina, AMD. Bakit nag-all-time high breakout yung AMD? Tinatalo nila si Intel. So, yung dating dominant chip maker sa gaming, sa mga processor, dinudurog na slowly ni AMD. Dati hindi mapasok ni AMD ang industriya na yan. So, game changer yun, yung ganung klaseng information. Or yung recent na galaw ni Tesla, diba? Parang dati walang naniniwala kay Elon Musk. Pero pansinin mo ngayon, sobrang cool na nung mga kotse niya. Pag sinabi mong electronic cars, siya yung leader. So, game changer yung information. Hindi lang siya pitcho-pitcho na maliit lang na information. So, that's one thing. In order to find these big opportunities, kailangan big picture opportunities yung pinag-iisipan mo. Hindi lang yung parang McDonald's opened one branch. Eh di yung reaction ng investor dyan, okay, sige, congrats. Di ba? Parang anong special sa isang branch? Siyempre, isang branch, kakalabanin ka pa ng mga ibang restaurants. Parang game changer ba yan? Ilang percent ba madadagdag sa top line mo niyan? Di ba? Kailangan pag-isipan mo rin kung big deal ba to. Kunyari, Merrymart. Merrymart, maganda yung galaw. Pero may mga iba sinasabi, wow, nag-open ng 3 branch. Okay naman yun. Pero 3 branch lang, Chong. Si Family Mart, parang daan-daan na yung mga branch, di ba? So, pag-isipan mo yun, si Pure Gold, daan-daan na yung mga branch. So, okay, nagbukas si Merrymart. Pero game changer na ba yun? Hindi pa masyado. Pero yung isa, Merrymart opened an online grocery platform with a drive-thru. Ayun, baka kakaiba yun. Kasi kung ma-execute niya ng magaling, pwede niya i-scale sa labas ng typical physical branch yung business niya. So, that can be a multiplier effect if executed well. So, yun, hindi siya usual. Baka exciting yun. So, dapat ma-pattern mo yung information. Ano yung information na pichi-pichi lang? Diba? Parang, wala yan. Parang hangin-hangin lang yan. No impact or weak driver. Ano yung information na, wow, major market cycle, major technological shift, major earnings driver to, or game changer talaga para sa kumpanya. Ganun. Pag na-practice mo na yung skill na ganun, yayaman ka, hindi lang sa stocks. Because you can apply that into your own career, into your own business. Kung sa career mo, alam mo kung anong companies ang papasukan. Pagpasok mo sa company mo, may impress sa'yo yung mga teammates mo and yung mga boss mo because you know these logical thinking and thinking of bigger picture, bigger business trends. Pag sa sarili mo negosyo, alam mo rin paano dumiskarte on the bigger picture mindset. Di ba? Bigger vision. Hindi ka lang yung parang sige, benta tayo ng siomai o benta tayo ng libro. Tapos kita tayo ng 1,500,000 tapos na. Okay lang yun. Sige, kung masaya na tayo sa 500K, 1 million. Pero ang tanong doon, may nabago ba tayo sa sistema ng mundo? May nabago ba tayo sa lipunan, sa sosyedad? May nasolve ba tayong malalim na problem? And are we building companies just for a few hundred thousands or millions, or are we building companies to really change a societal issue? Parang ganun yung big picture mindset. Kasi ito, papansin nyo, pag nag-aral na kayo ng chart, the biggest opportunities have a huge gap between value, yung current price ng stock. Hindi, di pala. Yung tunay na value ng stock, yung potential niya, and market emotions. So mapapansin mo, yung malalaking opportunities minsan nasa panic, or minsan hindi pa nagsisimula yung trend. Pero pag na-picture out mo na okay, in 5 years, Tesla will be a super car maker. Kung nabili natin, hindsight na to, no? Kung nakita natin yung potential ni Elon Musk, na naniwala tayo nung 100 to 200 pa lang si Tesla, edi sana milyonaryo na tayo lahat dito, no? Kasi umabot ng 1,500 to 2,000 yung stock niya. So, ang laki nung disconnect dun sa current price. Makikita mo rin to sa mga stocks na binibentahan, like yun, yung mga mining stock, sobrang pre-na-price in as if sarado na yung company. Yung Manila Water, nung nag-crash siya, sobrang pre-price in as if magsasarado na yung company. Dahil sa emotion ng tao, yung panic, lumayo dun sa value or sa potential ng stock, yung current price niya. And dun, kapag alam mo yung mga ganong opportunity, then pwede kang kumita. The other option to make big money in the markets is ito yung mga easy trades. So ito naman, yung kanina may discrepancy yung value and yung price pagkalayo. So dun pumapasok yung reversals. Itong pangalawa naman, nagko-connect sila sa isa't isa. Kapag agree yung price, yung dun sa catalyst, pag agree yung trend dun sa market information, dun sa catalyst, dun nabubuo yung major trends, yung major breakouts, major moves. Yung mga multi-year trends, multi-year breakouts, yan yung parang minimum bibigyan ka 40%. Tapos kung nasakyan mo talaga yung big trends, 80 to 200% and above. Depende na lang gaano ka kagaling maka-hold nung position mo at gaano ka lakas yung catalyst ng stock. So dalawang klase yan. Yan yung napansin ko na hindi mo kailangan parating nagma-micro ng trades mo, hindi mo kailangan intraday ng intraday. Hanapin mo yung mga bigger picture opportunities, and yun yung nakaiba ng wealth ko eh. Doon ko nabuo yung portfolio ko, yung mga biggest trades ko by finding these either wide disconnects or yung mga super alignment ng catalyst at ng trends. Tapos just to iterate, catalysts are nothing if there are no confirmation. So yun, pinoint na ni Toma kanina, you can be the best researcher or best analyst, pwede mo aralin lahat, but if the price does not agree or does not create a certain sense of sustainability, then baka mali ka. Baka kasi on the theoretic side, ang ganda-ganda ng isang concept ng catalyst, pero yung pala, walang pakialam yung market. Minsan nangyayari lang yun. Hindi mo na kailangan hindi na natin kailangan explain ba't kaya hindi gumana tong isang bagay. Hindi mo na kailangan explain. Minsan lang talaga, walang paki yung market, walang coverage, walang attention, which means wala ring institutional buyer, walang malaking buyer na nag-iipon ng stock. So walang movement. So kahit may catalyst tayo nakita, wala namang confirmation, maaring masayang lang, mag-sideways lang tapos bumaba. Which is why, importante sa akin na i-combine mo itong dalawang to at the right time and the right context. Okay? So, ayun. That's it for my part. And I'll give it back to Renzo. Hopefully, nagustuhan niyo yung synthesis, yung synopsis na ginawa natin on catalysts and trends.
Okay, so grabe. Sobrang malaman ang session natin today. So, salamat JC, salamat Paulo Tomacruz, and ang dami naming natutunan today. So, ang dami kong nakikitang comments and chats dito na sobrang solid daw ng talk nyo for today. So, let's move on to the program, no? And if may mga questions kayo regarding dun sa mga na-discuss kanina, isulat nyo na yon. Kung nandito kayo sa Zoom, i-chat nyo yan later kasi may question and answer portion tayo mamaya. Alright, so let's move on. So hindi pa tapos, no? So mamaya meron tayong raffle from Team Manila. So you can win these shirts. So napakaganda ng shirts na ibinibigay sa atin ni Team Manila. If gusto nyong mag-shopping, check nyo sila sa Lazada and Shopee.
Ayun.
Alright.
Guys, mention ko lang, ito si Team Manila, nakakatuwa to. Yung founder nito, isa sa founder si Sir Joey. So Investa user din siya. So dati binibili-bili ko lang yung mga t-shirt nito, nababasa ko lang yung storya nila. Isa sila sa mga parang pioneer t-shirt brands and art or graphic companies dito sa Philippines. Malamang nakita nyo na to yung mga Jose Rizal icon nila, yung mga t-shirts nila, di ba? Lupet. So ito, suportahan natin yung mga ganito, yung mga medium enterprises. Ito yung bumubuo ng ekonomiya natin. So we're very lucky na pagkasama natin sila dito sa InvestaUniversity. And sali kayo dito sa raffle.
Alright, tama. So kung kayo mga nanonood sa Facebook and YouTube, it's not too late. Pwede kayong sumali dun sa Investa University group para makasali kayo sa mga future paraffle and activities na nagaganap dito sa Zoom session natin. Alright. Okay, so next naman, so konting shout out lang sa ating mga loyal students and yung mga masisipag na students. So recently nag-long quiz tayo about TA and FA, and ito yung mga top quiz takers natin. So Allen and Chased by Grace PH, napakagaling nyo kasi na-perfect nyo yung napakahirap na quiz sa first try nyo. So aside from them, ayun din. So meron tayong mga naka-one mistake lang dun sa first attempt nila. So sila Jeff, Stin, Justin, Marilag, Mara, Marga or Margie. So congratulations guys, and na-appreciate namin na nag-answer kayo ng mga quizzes natin kasi pinaghirapan niya ng team. So thank you guys, and sana nakatulong to sa development nyo. So shout out sa inyo mga masisipag na students. And of course, yung mga homeworks din natin, nakakatuwa kasi ang daming nag-answer. So ito yung mga students natin, mga unang nag-submit ng homework natin for this. So kung hindi pa kayo part ng Investa University Group, hindi pa huli, you can join the Investa University Group and open pa ang enrollment hanggang sa matapos yung programa natin. So ayun, marami kayong nami-miss out if hindi pa kayo part ng group. Pero nevertheless, of course, lahat ng lessons natin is free. Facebook, YouTube, Investa Learn. Alright. So, it's time, Ito yung pinaka-favorite part natin ng ating session. So, it's time for a quick question and answer. So, after nito, magra-raffle session na tayo. And then, ngayon, I would like to see your questions. Alright. So, I will stop sharing my screen muna. So, tignan natin, So, Toma, Kervin, JC. So, tignan natin kung ano yung mga interesting questions na sinasabit sa atin ng mga Investa University students natin. Alright. So, one question. So, I'll get one from John Prado. Ano po advice nyo sa stock that has good earning reports yet the price of the stock nasa 1 to 2% gains for almost a week? So, Toma or JC, may mga advice ba kayo para kay John? So, yung disconnect between yung earnings and yung growth dun sa price ng mismong stock.
So, yung stock na hawak niya, good. Maganda yung earnings, pero yung buong position up lang ng 1 to 2%. Anong advice mabibigay? Patience. Kung may technical reason kung ba't ka bumili, baka hindi lang nagmamaterialize yung play. Tapos, sometimes hindi lang siya tumutuloy kaagad eh. Right? And especially sa Philippines na hindi lagi price driver ang earnings na sobrang mabilisan, I think patience is important. As long as it's above your stop, no? And ano naman, hindi naman siya yung sobrang, hindi ka naman yung naipit dahil nag-conso na matagal. I think yun lang, just wait, antayin mo na ma-stop out ka if ever. Pero of course, if fully allocated ka, tapos yung stock na yun na yung pinaka-weakest performer sa portfolio mo, tapos may ibang lumilipad, you might need to transfer the weakest performing stock for the faster moving horse. Parang ganun.
Alright. Sige, so GC, may sasabihin ka ba nun? Or next question na siguro, no? Since nasagot naman nito. Okay.
Yung earnings on its own kasi depende paano mo sinabi kung maganda eh. So you have to look at tatakal to sa next lesson, like earnings relative to ano ba yung valuation niya today, ano yung PE ratio niya. So doon mo makikita. So, tapos yung PEG ratio, parang yan. Explain natin yan sa susunod. So depende rin kasi yan kung ano na ba yung current position ng stock, tapos ano ba yung earnings. Surprise ba yan or expected? Kung expected, then expected rin yung galaw. Parang ganun. So minsan naman may mga ano rin times na may maganda na yung fundamentals tapos matagal lang yung galaw ng stock, hindi instant yung reaction. So wag ka bumili ng stock dahil gusto mo mag-react, mag-break, lumipad agad in the next day. Or bibili ka 1 hour, expect mo lilipad agad just because tingin mo tama na yung iniisip mo. Kagaya nung ASEN, matagal na yung naglalabas ng disclosure, good earnings, etc. Pero halos 70 days or 50 days nag-consolidate, di ba? As ngayon, nag-trend ng sobra. So may delay. Hindi yan perfecto na, uy, pagkalabas mo, akyat agad, parang gano'n. Give it time.
Okay. So I hope nasagot nila yung question mo.
May tanong sa akin dito. Felix trade ko, hindi ba daw ako na stop loss? Hindi ako na stop loss dahil mababa yung aking average. Tsaka big picture yung trade ko doon. So kung alam mo yung galaw, yung big picture nung trade, then alam mo rin kung ano ba yung stops mo. Kung big picture yung trade mo, then big picture rin yung stops mo. So ganun ako mag-adjust.
Okay. Sige.
Tsaka ito pala, teka lang sige. Allow me to share para lang mas makita ni Sir yung nagtatanong sa akin. Para sa nagtatanong, Sir, na-stop ka ba dun sa Felix trade nung nag-gap down? Let me show you. Ito yun, no? So, pansinin mo, EMA 20, nag-hold pa rin siya. Diba? Ayan, no? Nag-hold above EMA 20. Diba yun yung example ko kanina? If the stock is above EMA 20, then it's still on a short-term uptrend. Hindi siya bumaba eh. So, I just followed that simple thing. And then, of course, hindi lang EMA yan. Hindi naman perfecto yung EMA. Yung parang major stop ko talaga sa Felix is if it goes below 3. Or I think yung talagang long-term ko dito, stop ko dito, 290 pa nga or 280. So, ganun yung allowance ko. Iba-iba ng play kasi may iba, kunyari, late ka na bumili, may iba, ganito sila mag-stop. Kunyari, EMA 10 lang. So, pag EMA 10 yung stop mo, kasi momentum trader ka or short-term trader ka, stop out ka na dyan pa lang. Pero since, again, dapat alam mo yung goal mo or yung reason mo bakit mo pinapasok yung isang play. Since maaga ko na-identify ito and I'm on it for the at least medium term kasi nga si gold 10-year cycle change di ba? So big deal yun, hindi siya basta chupit lang na galaw. So ganun din yung pinattern ko sa trade ko. Mas in-extend ko yung stops ko tapos mas controlled yung average and sizing ko. So ayun, I hope you get the picture kasi kung te-textbookin mo lang yan at pure emotions, yun nga, iisipin mo na, lalo na, ang dami ko nakikita mga traders, ganito pa mag-isip EMA 5 or something, yung mga sobrang short term. Pag ganyan na ganyan ka, sobrang aktibo mo rin gumalaw. And you have to ask yourself, marami ako nakikita gumagamit nito, ask yourself, is it realistic if I use, and if I keep on trading based on a 5-day signal, like, do I really think that in my life I can execute on a 5-day basis? So kung mag-breakout on the on a 5-day pattern, bibili ako. Kung mag-breakdown on a 5-day pattern, which ano lang yan, take note, sobrang ang lapit lang nung EMA 5 dun sa galaw ng price. Tignan mo to Yan. Tignan mo yan diba? Up, tapos biglang dito, close below, tapos up. Pansin mo, dito pa lang, naka 1, 2, 3 trades ka na. 1, tapos nag-below, 2, tapos nag-above, 3. Yan. wala namang basagan ng trip. Kung talagang gumagana sa inyo yung short term, sige lang. Pero ako, naintindihan ko lang na ako, I would rather balance my life. Lalo na yung role ko sa Investa, mabigat din. And at the same time, alam ko rin na realistic na buhay, ang hirap i-execute na, nag-buy ka sa 5 above, nagbenta ka, nag-cut below, tapos nag-up na naman, buy na naman ulit. Doon pa lang yung normal na tao mapapraning na. Wala na. Baka 5 mali ka lang na ganun, 10 mali ka lang na ganun, you're out of the psychological context to execute in the stock market just because your signals were too short term. Yan yung isang mapapayo ko. So ayun, to summarize, hindi ako na-stop because ginawa kong angkop kung ano ba yung trade idea ko dun sa logical reasoning ko. So if it's a big picture trade, then you adjust your stops or your trade context accordingly. Big picture din. If you're in it for a momentum or short-term trade, then adjust on a short-term basis as well. So know yourself and your expectations. All right.
Okay. So next question from Francis N. So yung question niya naman more on about SNR, yung horizontal SNR or MAs and trend lines. So yung question niya, if kinonsider niya yung horizontal support and resistance, doon niya ba ibibase yung cut loss and yung TP niya? And same din sa MAs, doon niya ba ibibase yung cut loss and TP niya kapag yung MA yung ginawang basehan niya? So basically, I think si Francis medyo na-confuse siya kung ano ba yung dapat niyang sundin. So SNR ba, yung trend lines ba, or yung mga indicators like moving averages?
Pwede siyang mix. So, di lang siya need na kapag trend line yung basis mo, trend ng buying, trend line din yung basis mo ng selling. So, yun lang. Pwede siyang, pag bumalik ka sa breakout ng horizontal resistance, pwedeng MA yung pagbenta mo pag nag-close below. So, it's really a mixture of both depending on what works for you and your strategy. Yung kapatid ko, gusto lang mag-hi. Kasi hi na.
Hi.
Okay.
Suplado si ngayon
Hey, wait,
Kanina pa nag-aantay para makahay eh.
Wait, I need to say something first.
What?
Auntie to JC,
Hello. What?
I'm having school.
Oh, how's school?
Not good.
Good? Are you
No.
listening? Are you listening to the
Not
classes?
good daw, not good.
Not good?
And I'm running out, and my mom keeps on paying me, and I keep on failing.
No.
Oh.
No.
Kuya helps you, di ba?
You
Di ba? I helped you in Filipino.
Kaya pala
I
nag-fail.
got a meeting after my school. After
I have a meeting. I cannot always
Yeah,
help you.
you
Oh, sige na, you go to the other room.
Okay, never.
Bye-bye. Uy, webcam ko.
Okay, sige.
Sorry.
So, konting comedy lang muna. So,
Bye.
Wag na yan. Pag-aaral na yan. Nakakasira ng pamilya yan. joke lang guys and gals.
ay, nako. Okay. So, ikaw, JC, may add ka pa ba doon? Or next question na tayo?
Ano yung tanong? Parang ano yung mas dapat ginagamit?
Parang ganun. Oh, so, SNR ba? Or yung MAs or yung trend lines? Ano yung susunduin niya?
Yung MAs kasi, dynamic trend filter siya. So, explain ko to. No? Pero may video na rin ako nito sa YouTube, paano maghanap ng uptrend. Yung trend lines can be subjective siya eh. Kasi, pag inisip mo yung trend lines, di ba, kinukuha niya yung angle ng stock. So, visualization lang yung trend lines. Tapos yung patterns naman, pag tinignan mo, to simplify, support resistance lang yun. So, kung ano yung pinaka-importante sa mga yun, yung price action o support resistance, yun yung parang para sa akin yun yung top one. Tapos to help you identify yung mga uptrend ba or downtrend ba to, yung MA filters mo pwede mong gamitin. So ayun, pero in reality, combination siya. Kasi kunyari, makikita mo rin trend lines pang visualization rin yan on the bigger picture eh. Pero hindi mo naman kailangan perfectuhin na dapat sobrang straight ng drawing mo. Tapos pag lumampas ng 1 centimeter yung stock dun sa linya mo, baka katapusan na ng mundo. Kasi ganun ako dati nung beginner ako eh. Parang pag tumagos ng konti, kala ko magre-react na yung stock pero yung pala hindi naman parate. So combination.
Okay. Sige. Salamat, JC. So, yung next question naman, medyo na-answer na to ni JC kanina. So, ano yung best time frame for execution? So, na-mention mo kanina, JC, na the longer the time frame, the better. Pero ano nga ba yung time frame na for execution, yung mainly na tinitignan mo?
Hindi. Yung tamang time frame, depende sa iyo kasi yan, 'di ba? Yung sabi ko sa inyo, I pattern the trade depending on my life scenario. So ganun din yung ituturo natin sa mga next lessons na meron tayong short-term strategies, mga 5-day, 10-day, 20-day, mga intraday movement. Meron naman tayong mga medium-term strategies na ang tinitignan natin signals ay triggered by 40-day, 50-day, 60 days, mga ganun. Tapos may mga long-term din. Pero just to the bigger picture, the longer the signal, the more strong it is for me. So kunyari makakita ka ng multi-year breakouts, multi-year trends, mas malakas para sa akin yun. Pero with that, pag nakita mo sila, syempre may short-term opportunities dun. So depende na lang paano ka mag-execute. Yun muna. Kasi hindi ko naman madidikta ano yung gagana para sa inyo eh. Kasi ako, kaya kong maging patient. Hindi ko kailangan mag-withdraw parate sa account ko para bumili ng pagkain or gastusin. So, yung perfect sa akin, and busy rin yung day-to-day life ko, ayoko rin nagmo-monitor. So, yung strategy ko, semi-swing trading na trend following na medium term. Yun yung ako lang, preference ko lang. Pero kung mas gusto ko na atat ako, gusto kong gumagalaw parate, then baka intraday swing trader or momentum na binibentahan mo yung mga breakouts pag tumataas sila, yung mga ganun. So, kanya-kanya yan eh, depende. Ito yung maganda dito, next lesson, tatalakayan natin yan.
Okay. Ikaw, Tomo, may add ka pa ba dito?
Di ba yan yung question kanina? Ay, hindi, wala. Akala ko parang kay JC lang. Hindi ko narinig yung question.
Sige. So, I think na-answer na naman ni JC. So, next question. So, may nagtanong dito, hello, madidiscuss din ba ang stock ratios, fair value sa mga susunod na fundamental lessons? So, yes, sa mga susunod na fundamental lessons natin, pag-uusapan natin yung mga financial ratios and paano natin i-value yung certain companies. So, hanap pa tayo ng mga questions na medyo related, no? So, pag po ba, question ni Jefferson, pag po ba 52-week high ang isang stock, kahit walang news about it, magtutuloy-tuloy po ba siya? At saan usually tumataas to? So, Toma, I think masasagot mo to.
Nag-52-week high ba yung stock na walang catalyst? I mean, probably, right? But usually when a stock makes a 52-week high or an all-time high, that shows massive demand, eh, 'di ba? Kasi nasa point na siya na wala nang resistance na previous, 'di ba? So in most cases meron, even if we may not know it. Kasi nga, if you trade purely, pwedeng hindi pa lumalabas yung catalyst, 'di ba? Like I said, sometimes advance mag-isip yung mga yung chart, 'di ba? So it may be na di pa natin alam yung catalyst, or it may be na hindi na siya widely known, but most of the time, there's something to it if you research deeper. Right? So to answer the question na hanggang saan siya pwede umabot, di natin malalaman. It's something na cannot be answered in a black and white, diba, way. So iba talaga. It can go up as much as it want, or pwedeng super good news tas 10% ng iangat. Talaga, di mo mape-predict. What's important is yung selling rules mo. If you're at a profit, kailangan may rules ka sa pagbebenta, and ituturo din namin yun. So yun lang yung sagot ko doon.
Dagdagan ko yung sinabi ni Toma. Nangyayari yun na minsan walang explanation, biglang aakyat yung stock. Lalo na sa Pilipinas. Actually, sa US din naman, penny stocks. Pag sobrang gaan ng stock, tapos hindi natin masabi, no? Iba-iba naman ang rason. Pwedeng minaniobra ng mga insider, pwedeng gano'n. Hindi natin alam. Pero ito, example lang. Hindi sikat wala pang information out there, ni hao. Mining stocks gumagalaw, oo, pero ito parang na-break niya na yung 2018 niya na resistance. So 2 or 1.5 year high na siya. Tapos pansinin mo, wala namang may alam dito or di mo nga sure kung earning ba tong company na to, 'di ba? Pero gumagalaw siya. So yun yung other side rin of the ball game na minsan hindi mo na kailangan kung ano ka lang pure charts ka, hindi mo parating ma-justify or mapapaliwanag yung galaw. Pwedeng advance, pwedeng may mga insider mo nang bumili, pwedeng hindi mo alam. For whatever reason, pwedeng mamaya pa lumabas yung stock or pwedeng nilaro lang talaga. So yun yung mga random variables.
Game. Okay, salamat. So next question, hanap tayo. So kung may nakita pa kayong question, Toma, JC, Kervin, kindly magsalita lang kayo.
Sige.
Alright. So may question from Paul. Does this mean okay lang ba mag-hold ng matagal sa consolidation? Or di ba nalilesen yung opportunity from other stocks? So during consolidation period, ano yung suggest nyo sa mga traders natin?
Sige, ako na lang sasagot. Ay, sige, pwede ka magdagdag, Tom. Eto, bigay ko kayo ng example dito. Practicein natin yung chart as if na kayo yung nasa trade. Kunyari, di pa natin alam yung nangyayari. So let's say bumili tayo dito. EMA 10 gamitin natin. Para kunyari, short-term traders tayo lahat. May consolidation, napabili ka sa 190. Tapos up ka na. Up ka na dyan, 225, 17%. I'd say 70% or 80% ng mga normal traders happy na dyan. So karamihan, lalo na yung parang gusto lang nila ng easy 10% money, magbebenta na kagad dyan. 'Di ba? Kung doon ka lang, kung nakatingin ka lang sa P&L mo or yung short-term opportunity, then magbebenta ka talaga pag may mga ganyang opportunity, which is not wrong. Depende nga sa yan. Pero kung ang nakikita mo naman is sinusundan mo yung major reversal ng commodity, alam mo na ang major reversal will take 3 months to 6 months or even a year, parang ganun. May big picture na nangyayari. Then iba rin yung pattern mo, 'di ba? So doon sa tanong na sinasabi na, sir, does that mean okay lang mag-hold ng consolidation? Depende yun sa structure ng stock na hinahawakan mo. Kunyari ito, alam natin to na kunyari H1 or Conso 1. Sige, H1 na lang. Kunyari H1 to, 'di ba? Mula nung dati na nabulok si nickel dito, let's say wala pa yan tulog pa. So dito may H1 ka. Tapos nag-sustain yung higher low, ayun oh. 'Di ba? Nagka-higher low na. Tapos tingnan mo dito, nagka-H2 ka na. Parang yung low ni nickel, yung base niya tumaas na naman. So kung ganun yung structure na pinapakita sa akin, yung ganyang Conso, pre, gusto ko yun, 'di ba? Parang wow, medyo maganda. Yung next range nung box niya or nung consolidation niya mas mataas na dun sa dati, above 2 na. Tapos may catalyst pa globally. So yung ganung Conso, hahawakan ko yun. 'Di ba? It's an opportunity either to accumulate or bumibuelo lang yung stock as long as intact. So yung tanong na kasunod dyan, sir, paano ko malaman if out na ako, ganyan? So depende sa style mo yun. Pwedeng yung pinaka-simple is price break. So kunyari, sige, tanggalin ko yung box para mas kita. Kunyari, yan yung range mo. Pwedeng kung body ka mag-plot. 'Di ba? Ito, kunyari, kinuha mo yung pinaka-body nung current range nitong consolidation 2 na to. So alam natin na pag nag-close below 2, baka olats. So kapag body, tinatanggal mo yung noise. Pero pwede rin naman wick kung gusto mo i-calculate yung extreme parts ng range. So kung ang stops ko naman, sige, 193 yung low, pwedeng ilagay ko yung stops ko 193 or 190. Pwede mong ilapag yung stops mo doon. So actually, di mo naman masasabi kasi anytime pwede ka rin maging mali. So ganun yung opportunity, ganun yung pagtingin ko as trader and as a risk manager na okay, meron akong ideya, pero kung mali yung Conso, kung mali yan, mag-close below 190, then ibig sabihin mali ako. Magtitrim ako, magbabawas ako, magdi-defensive ako. Ganun ko siya nasasabi. Pero kung yung Conso ay in a healthy stage, hindi ko minamadali sarili ko kasi una, big picture trader ako or trend follower yung goal ko. Not unless yung initial na binibili ko sa stock ay chupit lang talaga. So may mga ibang stock na pang short time lang. Pero kung alam mo na parang may potential trend to, then hindi mo siya mamadaliin. Hahayaan bilang trend follower, hahayaan kong i-stop out ako ng trade rather than pangunahan just because I'm impatient. Pero iba-iba yan. May swing, may trend follower, may position trader. So dadaanan natin lahat yan. Okay?
Okay. So, Tomo, may i-add ka pa ba doon or okay na?
Wala.
Okay. Sige. So, napapansin ko maraming questions dito about indicators, no? So far hindi pa tayo nakapag-discuss ng mga technical indicators. Pero soon, no? In the coming days, in the coming weeks, yung mga indicators i-discuss sa atin dito sa Investa University. So yung mga tanong na EMA, MACD ba or RSI, pagdadaanan natin yan para mas maintindihan natin ng mas solid yung foundation natin. So may question dito from Jenna. So medyo related pa rin, I think, sa time frame. So when buying on breakout, intraday po ba bibili na? Or magwe-wait pa ba ng confirmation on the next trading day? So hintayin ba mag-close or sa intraday nag-breakout, bibili na ba ako? So yun yung question nila. Ni Jenna.
Depende na yun sa'yo. Right? Yun yung common na tanong eh. Ano, boss, bibili ba ako pag intraday nag-breakout o yung kabaliktaran? Boss, tumama na sa stop ko intraday, antay ba ako end of day o dapat end of day? Well, again, it depends on you. Kasi what if, okay, let's say end of day buyer ka. Nag-breakout, di ka bumili. Tapos, bago mag-end of day, binuhusan, nag-price rejection candle, edi genius ka. Pero pag end of day trader ka, tapos nag-ceiling, pero yung buy point mo talaga was 40% below the ceiling price, edi putik, wala, iyak ka na lang. At the same time, if intraday trader ka, pag bumili ka, tapos nag-close ng rejection candle, iyak ka. Pero pag bumili ka sa breakout, tapos nag-ceiling bigla, genius ka. Right? So, there's no right or wrong answer. It depends on you. Dati, end of day end of day trader ako. Nasisimula pala ako. Pero eventually, nilipat ko to intraday trader, pag may signal intraday pa lang, as long as it's not in the opening, as long as it's not the first 10 minutes, titirahin ko na. Kunyari, 9:50, ganun. But that's just me. Kasi accept ko na kung mali ako, if it fakes out and goes below the low of the day, yun yung cut ko, right? So it depends on you talaga. Walang right or wrong. Walang mas okay tsaka mas hindi okay. It depends on you. Siyempre, kung busy ka, if 9 to 5 work, mahirap maging altab warrior, the end of day is the answer. Right? If you want confirmation, end of day is the answer. But if you're someone who wants to take it now when the signal gives you the signal and kaya mo naman mag-cut, kung mali, tanggap mo naman na hindi lahat tutuloy, edi okay na yung intraday. Or if talagang active trader ka, edi intraday na lang. But it really depends on the person.
Yeah, to put it simply, para kang may decision points dyan, di ba? Ano bang mas gusto mo? Mas may confirmation or mas maaga ka? Kasi pwedeng intraday, nagre-react ka nga kaagad, pero maaring hindi pa pala yun yung final movement for the day. Minsan, random swing lang siya, pinitik lang or something. So, ako, para masagot ko yan, pinapasimple ko buhay ko. Kaya ako nagtatranching. Minsan, intraday, may mga breakdown or breakout, pipitik na ako or magtatranch ako ng konti. Pero kapag sa closing or pa-end na nung araw, nakita ko may sustainability na talaga, dun ako titira palalo. So pag pinansin mo, pag sinagot ko yung sagot mo, sir, intraday ba o end of day? Wala. Pareho. Hybrid. Situational. So you would think na, ang hirap naman ito ni sir. Walang isang sagot. Ganun talaga kasi sa market eh. Laging may pros, laging may cons. Ang tanong dyan, kada decision point mo or strategy mo, ano bang ibig sabihin? Bakit intraday? Ba't ako nagtatranch sa intraday? Ano bang ibig sabihin? Bakit ako nagtatranch sa end of day? Intraday, para may initial exposure na ako, pag gumalaw man yung price, at least nakabenta or nakabili na ako ng konti. End of day, kasi may confirmation na, mas pupuruhan ko. Lahat ng bagay na ginagawa, may reason. So dapat ganun ka mag-isip. Kung ano man yung ilalagay mo sa sistema mo, may logical reason. Pag-isipan mo muna, what will work for you in this situation? Then saka mo i-apply.
Alright, salamat. Okay, so regarding mga intraday time frames, yun yung mga sagot nila. And next, ito may mga questions tayo nakikita na hindi siya super technical analysis, more on paano ba. So ito na lang yung question, babasahin ko. So regarding, I think, manipulation and pump and dump plays. So paano ma-identify yung mga pump and dump plays? Dapat bang i-avoid to or pwedeng i-take advantage?
Ano, Thomas? Sagot ka ba dyan o ako na?
Lang.
Ha?
Ikaw na lang.
Pump and dump? Ano nga ba? Anong tanong? Paano i-avoid or dapat ba sakyan?
So dapat ba i-avoid to or pwede bang i-take advantage yung mga ganitong scenarios?
Pwede kasi, teka lang Ang pump and dump, depende kasi yan gaano ka kaaga dun sa cycle, di ba? Kasi, kaya mo masasabi na pump and dump kapag na-dump na. Paano, kunyari, ito. Ano ba ito? Grabe to. So, kung may ganito kayo, sana okay kayo. Bawi na lang sa future. Tsaka sana matutunan natin yung lesson natin. So, minsan kasi, mga tao, kahit wala namang manipulator dyan or operator, titira lang sila sa stock just because. Like, impulsive lang yung mga tao. Gusto ng jackpot play, gusto yumaman agad, etc. Tapos, hindi mo naman masasabi na may nag-dump dito or something. It's just that sobrang euphoric ng mga tao early on, kaya bumalik siya dun sa parang fair or tangible value niya. So, from 60 pesos, 40, nag-10. Diba? So, di mo naman masabi na dump siya, diba? Ano lang siya, ang nangyari, downtrend siya ng matindi. So, hindi mo na kailangan ilagay yung bias mo na, uy, pump and dump play to. Kasi habang gumagalaw yung isang stock, kahit sikat yan or hindi mo naman masasabi na pump and dump agad yan eh. on the exact spot habang nangyayari yun. Masasabi mo na lang na pump and dump pag tapos na. So, para hindi ka maiwan pag tapos na yung play, yun yung importansya ng how to cut losses, how to manage your risk, anong gagamitin mo mga stops point. So, at the price breakdown, lalabas ka ba? At the trend breakdown, out ka ba? Parang ganoon. So regardless, hindi mo masasabing pump and dump ang isang bagay up until na nangyari na siya. So, isang example, kunyari, ito dito. Paano masasabi na pump and dump to? 'Di ba yung kunyari ito. 'Di ba uso siya, third telco. So pareho sila ni Now, naggalaw rin from 3 pesos nag-8 siya. So opportunity 'yun. Doesn't mean na walang information kasi yun yung ni-react ng mga tao during this time on the third telco information eh. Right? Na okay, third telco siya, so hooray, bili tayo, gano'n. So yun yung euphoric reaction. But doesn't mean na pump and dump siya or may as if may mafia na oy, dump natin to mga chong. Parang walang gano'n. Walang gano'n, 'di ba? Parang trends lang 'yan. So kung alam natin yung trends natin, wag niyo tularan tong EMA 69, EMA 10 kunyari kasi speculative stock to. Ayun from 8 pesos nag high volume break na dito. So yung conso pattern niya, break niya tapos may malaking break candle na diyan. So karamihan ng tao, wala silang alam sa trends or wala silang risk. Alam nila yung trends pero they do not respect the trends or wala lang, human nature lang talaga eh. Maraming ganito, alam mo na yung concept pero di mo susundin sa execution. So ayun, does this mean na meron tayong i-blame na uy pump and dump to? Wala. It just means that we have to be aware of the trend and we have to react accordingly. Kasi kung nasundan mo yung trend dito, so ito, tignan natin, kunyari, opposite tayo ng selling, dito tayo sa buying, ayun consolidation pattern, may 5-day conso, tapos breakout 350, buy. Tapos may signal ka pa dito, merong mahabang consolidation, big picture move. Ito, ilang days to. So, 133 days consolidation. So, halos siguro 52-week high yan nung time na yan. 1-year breakout yan nung time na yan. So, valid siya. May momentum, may high, may new high, may volume, valid setup. During this time na nangyayari yan, hindi mo masasabi na, uy, pump and dump to, chong. Pag bias na bias ka, wala ka ring matitrade. Pero kung sinusundan mo yung trends and nabi-picture out mo yung information, regardless kung stock ba to na sikat or hindi, basta may bagong information, then matitake mo yung trade. Kailangan mo lang lagyan ng limit yung sarili mo. Karamihan kasi ng tao, feel nila forever na yung mga bagay. Uy, bili ako nito, fan na ako nandito forever, up to target 1,000, ganyan. So ako more of, ginagamit ko lang yung info plus yung trends. Kapag hindi nagtugma yan pareho, pag yung trend hindi nag-agree dun sa info, then may mali. I-reassess ko yung trade ko, babawasan ko yung hawak ko. Ganun ako mag-approach.
Okay, salamat JC. Yun, so alright, salamat. So last question na siguro, no? So since 10:40 na, and of course, yung mga question may replay po ba? Of course, may mga replay tayo dito sa Facebook, YouTube, sa InvestaLearn, pwede rin natin i-upload to. So yung mga other questions, no, in the future lessons, i-discuss din natin to regarding yung execution, yung mga tranching, yung mga types of traders, 'di ba? So pagdadaanan pa natin 'yun. Part ka ng InvestaUniversity. So last question na. So may na-experience po ba kayo na nag-trade kayo ng stocks na uptrend tsaka lang nyo nalaman na may catalyst? So basically siguro curious siya kung merong instance na nauna yung price action before nagkaroon ng some kind of catalyst dun sa trades nyo.
Sige, ikaw muna, Toma.
Madami. Sino ba? Ay, si Holcim. Si Holcim kanina. Sige, ako lang mag-share screen. Exit. Hang laptop ko, sir. Putik. Gusto mo mag-exit. Yun, si Holcim. Teka lang. Yun na, not responding. Teka. So yun na, yung Holcim trade. Parang, actually maraming times Dati kasi, di naman talaga ako active hanapin yung rason kung bakit gumagalaw yung isang stock. Kapag if it sets up to what I wanted to do, usually titira ko na parang di ko na inaantay malaman pa kung ano meron. Kasi eventually, kapag naging hype na yung stock, malalaman ko rin yun. And yun lang yung nangyari kay... Teka. Nalag yung laptop ko. Luma na kasi.
So, gusto mo ako mag-share, tapos i-type ko na lang.
Okay na ata. Minsan, ganito lang siya. Kasi matagal ko di ginalaw yung window. So kung ibabalik ko dito sa Holcim, okay. Yan. 'Di ba may downtrending, putik yan. Downtrending stock, may initial consolidation, may malaking bounce, 'di ba? From 6 to 10. Nagantay ako wala naman akong alam Looks like at the time there was some speculation, pero hindi ko alam kung ano meron. Yan lang, basic lang. Dinrawingan ko lang ng magic box, tapos binili ko sa retest. And then after the fact ko na actually nalaman na merong acquisition, which was dito nga. Right, sa pinakatuktok. So na-price in na yung news. So that was one scenario na uptrend siya, pero hindi ko alam na may ganito palang news. Saan ko pa ba nangyari na to sa akin si House din before. So may malaking uptrend. Dito pa lang meron na ako. Dito pa lang yan, sa breakout na yan, bumili na ako. May high tight flag. Yan yung tawag sa shorter conso. Pero basta yan, may conso, may breakout. And then, tinif ko lang. Late ko na nalaman na may buyback program pala sila. Parang dito na sa conso to yung sa second one. So marami talagang instances na di mo alam. Right? But the problem is, some people want to know first But there are times na, by the way, a buyback program is when the company buys its own shares from the public market. Bakit nila ginagawa yun? Ginagawa nila yun because they see potential growth. Diba? Or growth or value na hindi nakikita ng mga tao. So, binibili nila yung stock. Kasi tingin nila, kikita rin sila. They know their company naman. So, that's good. That's good yung buyback program because maybe the company knows something that we don't know. And at the same time, sometimes you don't need to know eh. Right? Or sometimes unintentionally di mo na alam. But some people kasi they want to wait to know what happens eh. But yun nga, sometimes once you already know, it might be too late. So marami ng quotes tungkol dito sa mga malulupit na trader globally nagsasabi na buy now, find out the reason later, basta nandun yung setup. But these were some instances na top of mind. I'm sure madami pa, di ko lang maalala. Na yun, uptrending stock, tinira ko lang dahil sa setup. Tapos maya-maya, tinext na ako ni Investa Watcher na news alert, buy back house, buy back shares, blah, blah, blah. So yun, yun yung experience ko.
Okay.
Up-share na ako sa yung bagay na laptop ko.
May add ka pa ba doon, JC?
Ayun. Totally depends on what kind of person you are, anong pinaprioritize mo. So example ako, 70% technical or 80% technical. So para sa akin kasi ganito ako mag-isip. Iniintindi ko yung mga information, yung mga catalyst, yung fundamentals, may view ako. Pero I do not let my view hinder my ability to trade. And I also acknowledge the fact that the universe of the market knows a lot more than me. So ano ibig sabihin nun? How does this relate to the question? Maraming chance na bakit kaya gumagalaw yung isang stock? Minsan hindi ko alam. So same lang kay Toma. Hindi mo na alam pero based dun sa statistical information mo, yung behavior ng stock dun sa technicals, gumagalaw na siya. So kung pasok na sa system ko, i-eyeball ko na yan or pipitik na ako, magta-tranche na ako dyan. So isang example ko dito, Emperador, kung prime user ka, kinover natin to, alam nyo, mula 8 pesos pa lang, 8.50, di ba, dito. Ito, kung naka-Investa Prime Research ka sa annual group natin, yan, di ba, finiture natin yung Emperador. Pag nag-breakout sa 8.40, 8.50, interesting yan. So bakit? Ba't natin finiture at this early point in time? Nung wala pang news dito, it's just because na nahuhold niya yung range niya above 8 pesos, maganda yung consolidation niya. Tapos ito, be-break niya na tong main itong resistance niya sa 850. Pag break niya yan, baka magising. Tapos malaki yung volume progression. So nung time na yan, wala pang announcement na magiging PSE index yan. Wala talaga kaming alam. Just because na-identify siya nung system. And then, ayun na, pagka break 850, dahan-dahan na nag-trend. Tapos Conso 2, di mo alam, dito lang lumabas yung news na EMP, part of the index. So yun, isang example to. Hindi porket, hindi natin inaasuma na dapat alam natin lahat ng information. Kung ganito kang klaseng trader first ka or technical first, minsan may setup talaga yung stock and ina-acknowledge mo na lang na there is no chance in the world that I will know everything. The market always knows best, parang galon. So, sinusundan mo, you react. Para kang Zen master, you go with the flow na ano ba sinasabi nito? Naku, mukhang may something Sige, tranche tayo dito. Ang crucial dito is minamanage mo yung risk mo. So, example, bumili tayo dito, 850. So, ang tanong dito, hindi yung entry mo eh. Hindi na importante yun eh. Ang tanong dito, ano yung size mo and paano mo manage yung risk mo? So, kung 850 ka bumili, sige, lalagay ako ng medium stops, 850, tapos if this goes below 790, I will go out. So 7% loss. So syempre, yung 7% loss na yon, naka-diversify pa ako, marami pa ako ibang hawak na stock. So pag nagkamali ako sa trade na to, maliit lang yung impact. So ganun mag-isip na kahit hindi complete yung information mo, dahil maganda yung supply-demand context ng stock and may potential siyang pinapakita, napapangunahan mo na. Mas minsan, magugulat ka na lang na, uy, ayos may balita pala, parang ganun. So that's the reality. You cannot always wait for information to be laid out to you perfectly kung trading mentality ka. Or even kahit trend follower ka na medyo medium yung approach. Minsan may stocks magte-trend. Hindi mo alam pa rin anong nangyayari up until a latter point in time. And that's the part where you follow the trend rather than you follow your opinions. Okay?
All right. So salamat, JC. I think that's a good way to end the question and answer, and salamat sa mga questions nyo, guys. And I hope na sagot namin ng maayos yung mga questions nyo. Of course, hindi pa tapos ang ating session for tonight. Meron pa tayong raffle No? So meron tayong quick activity, and if nasa Facebook, YouTube ka, feel free to join us in this quick activity. No? So yung na-mention natin kanina, ipapakita ko lang yung stock chart, tapos ang kailangan lang is masagot mo kung sinong company yung stock na pinapakita ko. So bibigyan ko kayo ng konting hints mamaya. So Kervin, I need your help sa raffle natin. So ipakita natin, no, and i-share screen mo yung wheel ng mga names para ma-raffle natin kung sino yung unang manghuhula, no? So kung tama yung hula nyo dun sa stock na ipapakita ko, mananalo kayo ng mga magandang t-shirts na ito. So Kervin, kindly share your
So,
screen.
hello, kita na ba yung screen ko?
Yes.
Okay, so i-spin ko na.
Okay, so kung nandito kayo, mag-chat kayo dito sa Zoom kung ikaw yung napili ng ating wheel. So Luis Cantorna. So Luis, nandito ka ba sa ating Zoom? Luis.
Check ko lang ha. Parang wala.
Walang Luis?
Pwede ba
Okay.
mag-chat kayo, Luis?
So kung wala, last chance. 5, 4, 3. Okay, wala. Sige, so hanap pa tayo ng isang participant.
Okay, i-remove ko na ito ah.
Yes, sir. Okay. So sino
Pwede ba
kaya
tayo
ang
manalo dun?
next next lucky user natin?
Ouch!
Si Mary Joy.
Mary Joy. So Mary Joy, kung nandito ka, parang wala akong nasa-search na Mary Joy dito sa
Pwede
ating
ba
Zoom.
mag-chat kayo if nandito ka, Mary Joy?
So, sige, we'll give you 10 seconds. So, yun guys, no, huwag kayong aalis sa ating Zoom kapag gusto nyo mag-participate sa mga ganitong prizes natin. So, 5, 4,
So parang wala.
sige, next. Next.
Ay, sirinig ba ako umiikot to? Dagdagan ko ng sound effects para sa inyo.
Narinig naman.
Rinig
Okay.
naman.
So, hindi ko na kailangan mag-ratatatat. Nag-practice ako kanina. So ito yun, si Mau Flores. Very active tong user and sakto nandito siya.
Game. So, Mau, kindly unmute Mau. And pakita ka na rin ng camera mo, no? So, Mau. Are you here?
Congrats, Mau.
So, hindi pa congrats, no? Kailangan niya muna mahulaan kung ano yung stock na ipapakita ko.
Pag di na nahulaan, di niya makuha yung t-shirt.
Oo, pero napakadali nitong chart na ito kasi
Grabe, may exam pa sa... Sa pa
na-discuss
exam
ito.
raffle.
Mau, nandyan ka ba?
Hello, Mau.
Ouch, wala si Mau.
Sayang, napaka-consistent pa naman na student nito. Mau, are you here? Ay, hindi pa. So, okay. So, wala si Mau. So, again, no? So, yung mechanics nito, pag napili ka, kailangan mo mahulaan yung stock na ipapakita ko. So, since wala si Mau, sayang naman. So, isa pa, Kervin.
Okay, remove ko na rin ba, Renzo?
Huwag muna. Baka mamaya mag-chat siya. So, may chance pa siya if ever. So guys, no, if hindi pa kayo official student ng InvestaUniversity, ito yung mga isang benefits.
Ito, si Jason Javier.
Jason, are you here? Javier, wala akong nasa-search. So, kung ano man yung pangalan mo, mag-chat ka dito. Jason, are you here? Mag-chat ka kung nandito ka.
Parang wala.
Sige. So,
Or gusto nyo kasi parang low probability yung raffle tapos huhulaan pa eh. Parang malaki chance mali. Wala yung tao tapos mali. Gusto nyo paunahan na lang
Game.
sila. Oo.
Sige.
Sa chat para lahat may chance.
So,
Oo, kasi low probability matatagalan tayo. So magbigay kayo ng chart, papakita ni Renzo, tapos lahat ng nasa Zoom, paunahan mag-chat.
okay.
Sige.
Kervin, ikaw magbantay. Sino nauna?
Sige, iwas tayo sa spam guys.
So,
Walang spam guys. Pag nagbitaw ka na ng sagot, yun na yung sagot mo. So one chance lang for each round.
Kasali
Okay.
kami dyan, ha?
Hindi pwede. So, ito, napakadali lang nito. Kahit hindi ako magbigay ng hint, alam nyo na yung chart na to. So, papakita ko.
Renzo, mag-countdown ka pag i-move mo na sa
Sige.
slide para at least.
Okay, sige. So, I'll give you guys 5 seconds to prepare yung mga mata nyo. Itutok nyo na sa screen in 5, 4, 3, 2, and there you go.
Sino yan? Ayun na, may nauna na.
Ayun na, isa na. Okay, teka lang. Stop na guys. Wala na makakasagot.
Tama na.
May nanalo na eh. Si MC Trader ba? Nickel ba to?
Okay, tignan natin. Yun.
Si
Tama.
MC Trader.
Oo, MC Trader. Okay, panalo.
Palista na lang.
Congrats MC Trader. Pa-chat na lang kami after kahit sa Investa chat or kahit sa Facebook chat to claim your prize.
Alright, MC Trader. So, i-type na lang natin yun, no? So, next, chart. Again, I'll count 5 seconds. Tapos yun, tutok lang kayo. Tapos i-chart nyo yung chart na ito. Ito, medyo mahirap to. Hindi yata na-discuss to tonight. So, good luck sa inyo. 5, 4, tapos PSE ito. PSE stock. So, local stock siya. So, yun, may clue na. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tignan natin kung sino mauna.
boy.
Medyo.
Dami may alam, ah.
Talaga?
Wala na kanina.
Sino na una? May nakakuha na?
Oo, nakita ko.
Sige. Stop na guys. May nakahula na.
Si John, di ko na ako si John Granda na una. Teka.
Ano
Parang
stock
si
mo?
John nga.
STI?
Oh.
Check
Wow.
natin.
Tama ba si John Granda?
Si John Granda na una.
Okay.
Bilis, ah.
Alright.
Congrats,
Napakalupit.
Ayos Okay, chart nito ayos Joke lang.
So, ayun. So, mukhang nakatuto kayo sa charts everyday, no? So, ito na yung last, no? Para manalo tayo ng shirt from Team Manila.
Guys, gals, iterate lang namin. So, ito yung perks for being part of the InvestaUniversity and yung Zoom sessions natin, no? So, para sa mga nasa YouTube and Facebook, sali kayo dito next time para maka-participate rin kayo. So, tuloy-tuloy to sa mga susunod din.
Una pa lang yan.
Oo.
So, marami
Next
pang
time, kotse na.
activities
Joke na.
and prizes.
House and lot.
Okay. So,
Easy.
ready na ba sa ating last?
Game.
So, lugi daw yung mga newbie. So, ang lesson is kailangan mag-check tayo ng mga charts, no?
Lugi mga naka-mobile. Hirap mag-chat eh.
Mga mobile, oo.
Sorry na lang.
Okay lang, enjoy lang. Isip tayo next time, mechanics.
Oo, next time marami pang prizes. So,
Ayun si MC newbie daw. Okay, game. Countdown ka na, Renzo.
okay,
Last one.
so ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, and teka. Go. So, Nasdaq, US stock, and medyo
Hirap naman yan, sir.
May nakahula na yata.
Meron na.
meron
Dali lang eh. Ba't yung pinili mo, boy?
Kasi,
Dapat
hindi ko
pinahirapan
alam.
mo yung parang barcode, yung mga FAF, yung mga ganun.
Naman. Siyempre, para sa mga newbies din, no? Na
Galing.
tinitignan mga favorite
Teka.
stocks nila.
Tama ba? AM dito, no? So, si E nakakuha?
Hindi. Ay,
Ay,
tama.
AMD, di ba?
AMD.
So, panalo si E. Teka, E, anong totoo mong pangalan para lang kilala ka namin? Or message mo si Kervin or si
Josh daw.
Ayun, sige. Para lang sure. Kasi dati, may pina-contest ako, tas may ibang nagki-claim eh. Hindi naman sila yung nanalo. Nakakatawa eh.
Ay, nako. Alright. So, congratulations sa ating mga winners and I hope nag-enjoy kayo. I hope nahulaan nyo rin yung mga charts na ito and I hope marami kayong natutunan from our session today. So, I will stop my screen share and okay, I think it's time to close. Maraming salamat again. Thank you for your patience sa mga naghintay kanina. Thank you for being here. Salamat sa patience nyo and sa understanding. So, any final words, Toma or JC?
Wait lang. Ayun. Si Kervin, lista mo lang like sila MC Trader, si E, tsaka sino yung isa pa?
Si John Granda. Oo,
Oh.
nalista ko naman. Sinachat ko rin sila ngayon privately para kunin yung real names nila.
Okay. Cool. Sige.
Mga winners, chat muna real name privately kay Kervin
Oo.
para lang malista. Kung hindi nyo kinlaim, kami na magkiklaim.
Okay. So guys, before we end, pakita muna kayo, show your cameras para makapag-picture taking tayo ng saglit, no? So, memories.
Picture. Hopefully you guys enjoyed.
Okay. So, thank you guys. Thank you. Salamat for being here. And I hope marami kayong nakuha from this session. Of course, marami pa tayong future sessions. Simula pa lang ito. Wala pa tong kalahati ng Investa University program. So it's not too late to join if you're watching there on the sides, no? Feel free to join our Investa University group. Okay. So, JC, may mga final words ka pa ba before we take our pictures?
Ayun. So, una, thank you sa inyo, kay Toma, kay Kervin, kay Renzo. So, inabot tayo ng halos 3 oras. So, tignan nyo, ito yung mga dedication ng mga teammates ko. Sobrang Sunday ito Hindi yan Sunday on a job, ginagawa nila. Though wala naman kami pilitan, pero yun, sana na-appreciate nyo yung dedication ng mga teammates ko. Sobrang nilalagay talaga nila yung puso nila dito sa ginagawa namin. And I hope na it also translates rin into the learnings and yung progression natin as a community. Sana nakakatulong talaga tong ginagawa namin. And marami pa yung mga next parts, ito na yung yung juicy aspects, mga indicators, systems and etc. And yung mga tanong nyo kung paano ba gumawa ng strategy, dadaanan natin 'yan. So if wala pa kayo sa Investa University group, sali kayo next para makasama kayo sa mga sessions natin and sa exercises. So I hope that you also participate kasi ito sobrang pinaglalaanan natin ng efforts to. So maraming salamat everyone, guys and gals. Thank you sa oras nyo. Nag-picture na ba tayo, Renz? Sige.
Okay, so salamat JC. So ayan, mag-smile na tayo and pipicturean ko in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Yung black.
And isa pa, so since marami tayo dito sa Zoom, isa pang
Sige.
picture.
Ngiti kayo 5 seconds.
Ngiti kayo for 1 minute. Alright? Isa pang picture. Napakadami. So yung iba outdoors, no? Yung iba siguro OFW din. So thank you guys for all the support sa pagpa-participate nyo sa lahat ng activities natin.
Cute ng pusa ni Eller, Ming Ming.
So kasi Ray nagmo-Mobile Legends.
Renzo, siguro last, flash natin ulit yung partner natin do sa giveaway para lang may exposure sila at the end.
Alright.
Yan. So, thank you to Team Manila, kay Sir Joey. Then, may mga giveaways ulit tayo sa susunod. So, isip tayo mga bagong mechanics. And we'll post na lang sa Investa group natin sa university pag may mga next na contest and homeworks. Alright, everyone. So, thank you and good night. Okay, Renzo, ikaw na bahala.
Alright. Salamat guys. Thank you for being here. So, good night or good morning kung nasaan man kayo sa mundo.
Good night.
Kita-kits ulit sa susunod na lessons. Thank you.
Kita-kits.
Renzo, pwede mo i-plug yung negosyo mo.
Anong negosyo?
Yung yung consultant, yung pagiging consultant mo.
Oo. Okay yun. Na-try ko na.
Yung effective yung bicep maximization specialist degree ni Renzo.
Teka, naka-live pa tayo. Ikaw close
O
ka
yun,
muna.
online consultation guys. Renzo, pakita mo nga.